Good morning and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and this is your election headquarters. And we're going to be giving you this extra until the inauguration is over, perhaps. And this morning, very simple 3 questions we want to ask on Newsfile. John Mahama's corruption fight. Will oral Operation Recover All Loot make any difference in the corruption fight? Is it a game changer? Is it an illegal entity that we must jettison as quickly as possible? The Re-collation fight, the Electoral Commission has been very clear, unambiguous, that where the Re-collation they have problems with because they were non-compliant with the law, as in CI 127, they will not accept them. Initially, they were using the term annul them and do a re-collation. The question has been whether or not the law allows this process. And what happened to the EC's position in 2020 as far as Techiman South was concerned, when she told the NDC that your only avenue of redress is the High Court. Well, there have been developments yesterday. There have been orders from the courts. These orders are the brutum fulmen. Will they be enforced? Or they are just an empty boast, so to speak? The NDC is asking its supporters to occupy collation centers. Will they do the collation at the Tesano Police, training school, or they will do it at the Army Barracks? What's the difference? The transition fights. The incoming government insists that there ought not be big debt payments and the mass recruitments that we're beginning to see. The outgoing government insists it is still in power, and it is the government for now until midnight of the 6th of January. How are these shaping up to ensure a smooth transition? I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. I'll return quickly with my guests. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. We're starting early at 8, as I announced to you the last week, because this is the period. In fact, we are not going to have any Christmas, I suspect, because of the transition situation. So this is your election headquarters. This is your most credible, fearless, independent journalism platform. We are probing the oral. You know the oral? That is Operation Recover All Loot. It's John Mahama's anti-corruption, overarching arm, so to speak, before he gets into office, to use to, as it were, collect information on corruption, information on wrongdoing, and for that team to sort of prepare same and hand them to the appropriate agencies of state to mount prosecutions where it is necessary. There's been re-collation that brought problems. Re-collation of parliamentary results. And as you can see, initially they began with some sort of consensus among the parties that there were places where there were issues about the collation process, and therefore they needed to proceed in the manner agreed. So there was one constituency or collation center at the police training school to prevent the youth or the supporters, particularly of the NDC, we must be clear about that, who were besieging these collation centers from coming there. And the process started, but it was botched because the NDC disagreed that it should continue. And they fortified their disagreement on the law, referring also to the Electoral Commission chairperson's advice to them in 2020 when they sought a similar process for re-collation, and they were told to their faces that the only place you could get that done, for as long as re-collation has been done and a declaration has been done, will be at the High Court. Now, that has been stopped. They even did not appear to allow places where collation had not already happened to continue. Now, they mounted suits. There's a suit in the High Court stopping the EC from going ahead with the process, and it has been dismissed by the High Court. The NDC has proceeded to the Supreme Court to challenge the decision of the sole jurist. They have also filed an application that's supposed to stay the hand of all the stakeholders involved until the Supreme Court has heard the process to prohibit the Electoral Commission from going ahead. But as we understand, there was also one matter in Sawo Madrejiri, and the court held that the re-collation should go on. Well, as we understand, the security is supposed to provide sufficient, adequate security for the EC to be able to carry out this exercise. Is the exercise going on? We understand that it may be going on at a location, and on social media, you have seen members of the NDC asking their supporters to occupy any collation center. There were suggestions that it was going to be done at the army barracks, where access to that place would be difficult, just almost in the same way like Tesano police training school. But we will check that and bring you up to speed. Also, there are the transition blues. Around this time, there appears to be feverish recruitment exercises, mass recruitment exercises, in fact, and various appointments going on, and huge payments being made or transactions being done. The incoming administration says it has to stop. Issued communication one and a second one in unequivocal terms. But the outgoing administration insists until the 9th, the 6th, midnight of the 6th of January, the government of the Republic of Ghana is constituted by starting with the executive and headed by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. How do we navigate all these issues? I'm happy to announce to you that I've got stellar guests. You will love them. And here in the studio, ladies first, Mary Awalana Ada is Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. You may have heard them asking a number of questions about the oral Operation Recover All Loots. Right here is the consensus objector, Oliver Baka Vomawo, Constitutional Rights and Policy Strategy Advisor at Democracy Hub, the group that insists that if something is unconstitutional, no order can change it. Lady and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm particularly happy to see you.
Yes.
Great to see you. And Oliver has been sharing some ideas that have gone viral about what has been handed the Mahama administration and what it is expected of them. And if they fail, they will be cursed, almost, more or less. Joining us virtually, Frank Davies is lawyer. He's chairman, Constitutional and Legal Committee of the New Patriotic Party. He's very familiar with this terrain of election disputes. He's done it over and again. Dr. John Osai Kwapong is fellow CDD Ghana and project director at the Democracy Project. Today we have two democracy, people on the show. Dr. Osai Kwapong will never miss the opportunity to tell us what the Afrobarometer is telling all of us, particularly about, on these issues we are going to discuss, about the questions of trust or the lack of it, either in the executive, the judiciary, or the legislature. Remember that there's a problem in Parliament because government is literally shut. In the same way that is happening in the US with Trump taking over. There's no budget for the first month of the year. There's a blame game going on. Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe is co-chair, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, and Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa is MP North Tongue and chairman of the Oral. Gentlemen joining us via Zoom, thank you very much for making time to join us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. That's the voice of Dr. Osai Kwapong. Yeah. Hello, Frank Davis. Please unmute your mic.
Yes, that.
Great.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Morning. Good morning.
Great.
Samson.
Right. Maybe I should begin with you. What do you make of the? We will hold on with oral because Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who is at the helm of it, will join us at 9. So when he joins us, then we can look at those issues. What do you make of the developments regarding the collation, re-collation issues that is bringing us some, difficulties?
Well, good morning once again to your cherished and esteemed viewers and listeners. And good morning to my co-panelists. Oliver, I haven't seen in quite a while. And Madam, good morning. I would have thought that with the court, so to speak, having finally settled the matter by way of the application which was moved on Friday, there's seemingly differences and challenges would cease. But it would seem as if we still have a little bit of a problem. I don't know why, but I'm told, I haven't seen any process yet, but I'm told that Eduji Tamaklo, who was in court for the NDC on the day the ruling was handed, has subsequently filed a motion in the Supreme Court. I don't have access to that process. I don't know whether you have it to Samson.
Yes, I've seen a certiorari application and a different application for a stay.
Oh, okay. I haven't had the benefit. Okay, so as it is, I don't know the terms and the orders being sorted out. Of course, for certiorari, we all know it's clear. It's to push whatever ruling has been handed. But the other applications that have been filed, I don't know the extent and content of the reliefs being sought. But I thought that today would be the final day for the collation and let's borrow the re-collation of the pending constituency parliamentary results. Be that as it may, I don't know what effect the processes that have been filed in the Supreme Court, the effect they will have on the orders handed by the court. I have not had the benefit of a read, so I can't be too certain what they are. But if what I'm reading is anything to go by, the EC is poised to commence the process today with security provided by the National Election Security Task Force. So I will want to believe that all things being equal, the exercise would continue today.
Right.
But Samson,
Senior, are we going back to the Tesano Police Training School?
I wouldn't know where the police have authorized for the exercise to continue. Yeah. But I'm still inclined to believe.
And understand it's at the old EC head office.
The old EC regional head office at Rich. Yes, I read so.
Right.
I read so at Rich, the regional office. But Samson, let me say something in passing. Honestly, Samson, I have been very, very bothered and worried about what has gone on in the last couple of days or weeks. And I'm speaking from a background knowledge of being physically present at the Regional Collation Center on Monday, the 9th of December. I was at the Regional Collation Center in my capacity as head of Legal Directorate of the Bawumia 2024 campaign, and also as chairman of the Constitutional and Legal Committee of our party, to supervise the continued collation of the results of the parliamentary elections in Okakwe Central, Abikuma North, and Domkwabenya. I was there with some other officers of the party, and Samson, truth be told, what happened there, to be very mild with language, was a complete disgrace to our democracy. I'm sure you saw footage of what was going on television, because your team, the Joe FM team, was there.
Yeah.
Look, Samson, it is only by providence. I am telling you frankly that I'm still alive. Because what happened there was scary. At a point in time, I was there with the Venerable McMenu, our revered Federal, and Ambassador Edward Boatin. We all were constituent heads of the directorate of the campaign. And Samson, the NDC sympathizers or supporters had besieged the room, had virtually overpowered the police, and at a point in time, they held the keys to the room. So you couldn't go out without their express permission or consent. And the chaos in the room. There was one particular gentleman, I don't want to mention his name, because I want to preserve his identity. But maybe when the investigations unfold, we will see who. There was this particular gentleman who was so rancorous, so boisterous. I don't know what had gone into him. And at a point in time, he and others literally held the returning officer, threw him from a stage that he was, dragged him, and hit him in his chair to declare the results. Look, we were all there, and really could not understand what was going on. Much as his other colleagues were trying to calm him down, I don't know whether it was a show of bravado for everybody to see that he was doing something spectacular. And we were there, the four of us, with our candidates, because Patrick Boama, the incumbent MP, for risk of his own life, didn't show. It was only our PC for Ablikuma North, Ekuafriye, who was still in the room, but the officers for Patrick Boama were there. And then Dom Kwabenya, we had been advised by the returning officer that the process had been stalled and that we will hear from them. So Makokwe and his group also left, and we were there. But I must, at this stage, it will lie ill in my mouth, and I'll be doing the service to this gentleman, if I don't mention his name. I must doff my hat this time around for Dr. Otokuno. But for him, what will have happened will have been disastrous.
What did he do?
He had to calm down some of the irate and angry. I mean, at one point in time, one of them said to me that you have been coming on television, radio, and speaking big English for the MPP. This time around, we'll teach you a small lesson. But I remained very calm.
That's a criminal threat. I knew it was,
well, Samson, at the spare, and in that moment in the room, there was nothing you could do to justify any action by the police or so, because the police themselves have been overpowered. So I said to him, really, why? Have you staged a coup d'etat? This is a process we are all supervising. So what are you threatening with? I couldn't be bothered, but I was there. Meanwhile, the imminent fear of being lynched was real. It was Dr. Otokuno, at the peril of him getting even beaten by his own sympathizers, who calmed down the situation. Later on, he was joined by Eduji Tamaklo, Adaudu, Amaliba, Adekoka. I think later on, Agbeshiwoyome also came. And we started exchanging pleasantries and they spoke to their people. But the atmosphere, Samson, was charged. And I just cannot understand why our friends on the other side would think that with this challenged atmosphere, results could have been declared. Indeed, the results that was declared for Kakwe Central was declared without 31 polling stations. And as to how they came to that conclusion that you can declare results for parliamentary constituency, parliamentary election by just collating 161.
Did I lose Frank Davis? Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay.
With Ablekumanos.
Hold on, Frank Davis. And he's been talking about stuff that's very frightening. And you will not imagine that this will be happening today in our democracy, which is a democracy of the rule of law and not the rule of the mighty. As we understand, there were 9 centers that they had agreed as parties to allow for the coalition to go on. Unfortunately, only 3 of those centers, coalition could happen at only 3 of those centers, leaving completed 3 and leaving about the 6 outstanding, where we are told that let me go straight to the old EC head office, where Maxwell Agbagba joins us from. Hello, Maxwell. Hello, Maxwell. Yeah, Maxwell, tell us about the situation where you are. Are people already in there? Are you giving access? I can see multiple police barricades, different layers of that.
Yes, exactly something. So we're here at the EC's regional offices here at Ridge, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of activity here already this morning. Multiple police barriers, crash barriers here, with many of them strategically positioned. I've seen 2 water cannons here already. And in the last 5 minutes, we had sirens, blaring all around here because some of the electoral officials who will be part of the collation arrived here on the ground at the EC's offices. But they're not going to use this entrance, so they had to do a detour to use another road to get access to the offices. My colleague James Aveji is also in the premises itself, observing what is happening there. I've seen quite a number of people around. Not many of them I've not seen any of them in party colors. Remember that yesterday, after the Accra High Court gave that clearance for the Electoral Commission to go ahead with the Re-collation, we saw flyers from the National Democratic Congress and then the NPP urging their supporters to come here and be present here during the Re-collation exercise. We've not seen any of them in party colors here, but we've seen individuals who are standing here who tell us that they're here to witness the process, and they're standing in groups. I've seen people standing in groups of 3, in groups of 4, just standing, folding their arms and observing what is going on. But we know that yesterday during the press conference held by the National Election Security Task Force, that press conference addressed by the Director of Police Public Affairs, ACP, Grace Ansah Akrofi, she stated that if you do not have any accreditation, you shouldn't be present here, and that you're not going to be allowed into the premises of the Electoral Commission. In fact, she also advised the political parties to refrain from inciting their supporters to mass up here at the collation center. It appears it's early days yet, but it appears that is not going to happen. Indeed, we've also seen that leaked memo from the Ghana Police Service, where thousands of police officers are going to be deployed here. Some of them, we've seen them already here, going to ensure that things are done in a very, the Re-collation is done in a very serene manner. So if you come here this morning, the activities are about to start. In the last 5 minutes, like I indicated, we've had sirens blaring with some vehicles arriving here with electoral officials we believe are going to be part of the Re-collation exercise. In fact, they arrived here on the ground under very tight police, escort, and they used the other entrance to the other side. Now, these are police officers, we're told, who will be here, who would also be stationed here. If you don't have accreditation, you will not be allowed access, you'll not be given access to the premises of the Electoral Commission. Now, these are multiple crash barriers that we've seen, about 3 of them, different layers. So one here, the other one, just about 50 meters, 30 meters apart from this one, and then another one over there. And we've seen quite a number of police men also seated, observing, what is happening. We've seen quite a number of people also here arriving on the ground. None of them we've seen in party colors, but they tell us that they're here to observe the process, something the police has advised them against. So we'll be here and be observing the process, and we'll be keeping tabs on what will be happening, and we'll bring you up to speed on everything that's happening here.
So, like Baba, they are the old EC regional office here in Accra, and a number of things coming up here. As you can see, the barricades in different layers, but at Tema Central, I'm sure I didn't see anything different from what you see, and yet when Malik Basantale got there with his team, they dismantled everything. The police made way for them, and they got in there and procured the declaration of the results. They had issues with the EC officer who was in charge of the place. And as we have been told already, and Frank Davis has also confirmed what we already know, in most of the collation centers where the collation could not happen, you had police in similar numbers, and yet the police at a point said they were overpowered. They couldn't do their job, okay? They couldn't do their job. Let's hope that that is not the case today. But the legal question that will arise will be that, as we understood from Eduje Tamaklo last night, that the police were duly served with the process. There is a process of stay that has been served on the police. So is it the expectation that the police will be here this morning? Will the NDC send representation? Remember, by law, the presidential candidate, I think, will nominate 2 representatives. The parliamentary candidates will also have their representatives or so, and they will all have to be at this place. Will they attend? Of course, there's a portion of the law that says that, the EC's law, that says that where there's a requirement for an attendance, and an attendance of a candidate or the representative of a candidate, and they fail or refuse to attend, their failure does not invalidate what would be done. That's in CI 127. So a number of questions we will ask them. We have our man, James Aveji, inside. You have Maxwell outside. So we will get to James Aveji too and get to see how the inside looks like. But let me come to the studio now. And a quick comment from Mary. And then, because I know when I bring in Oliver, he will speak some law. As we understand, they successfully completed the collation for Akwetia, Fantiakwa North, and the Suhum constituencies. But they couldn't continue with the rest because, as the EC says, that the officers were intimidated. There were disruptions of the collation centers by the political party representative, destruction of pink sheet collation forms and electronic equipment. Declarations were made without result from all polling stations. Staff were threatened and coerced into making declarations. And she said that in view, and I'm quoting her, in view of the commission, upholding such unlawful collations and declarations will set a bad precedent for our country and set us back to the dark days. We call on the National Election Security Task Force to work together to put in place arrangements to ensure that our staff and our processes are protected and secured. Unfortunately, as we have witnessed on TV, images have emerged showing our staff being threatened and made to declare results. Unfortunately, this has been in the presence of the police. Though the police have been present at all collation centers, the supporters of political parties have managed to gain access to the collation centers and have disrupted the collation process. That's to say, they don't even trust the police any longer. And they told us that they wanted the process that was ongoing to continue. But they asked the police, and the police said, we cannot be present. We can't help you because it will not be an advisable thing to do. Mary, hold on quickly. Let me go to James Aveji, who is inside. James, give us an idea how this collation process is starting.
Well, Samson, so this is the inner premises of the Electoral Commission's Greater Accra Regional Office here in Accra. And as you can see behind me, a few officials, vehicles of the EC officials just arriving at the premises. We earlier went up to the collation room that was used last week, but the doors to the premises have not been opened, and so we are all here. I'm told the exact venue for the collation for this morning has been changed from where it was done last week to the EC's IPAC room for today. But as we speak, the door or the conference room has not been opened. You see, just 2 minutes or 5 minutes ago, officials from the various regions are arriving here at the EC premises. I just saw a while ago the Deputy Regional Director for the EC in the Eastern region also arriving here. We know that the Eastern region, there is still one constituency that needed, whose collation needed to be completed here at the office here, which is the Nsawam Edwejiri constituency. That is the constituency of the Majority Whip, Frank Anodompre, And so that process, which has not been completed at the Tesano Police Training School, would also be completed here at the EC premises. And so you see in your shot there a few of the officials coming around, waiting for the exercise to begin as we speak here in the premises. Not much police presence is here, but all around the building, I mean, dozens of police officers, including military personnel, are here outside the premises. Would make an attempt to see if I could speak to any of the EC officials here to know where they're coming from. Sir, would you care to speak? Okay, he doesn't want to speak to me. Sirs, would you care to tell us which exact polling stations you're coming from? Samson, the officials here would not want to speak to us on camera, but one would believe that they are coming from various polling stations in the constituencies under contention. At least 6 of the constituencies, the NPP has been able to get the High Court in Accra to give an order to the Electoral Commission as well as the Ghana Police Service to resume the coalition of those various constituencies and declare the final winners. And so it will be a long day for us. Coming in here, I was expecting to see, the party supporters, as we had earlier seen some flyers of the political parties marshalling them to the EC office here, but no party supporter have been seen on the street nor in the premises here as we speak. And so atmosphere is cool and calm here. We're hoping that it will be the situation in the course of the day as all of this coalition happen to see what the final verdict of the Electoral Commission will be. Trying to run you through quickly the constituencies under contention this morning that we're expecting the EC to work on. They include Insawam Edwejre constituency, also the Ablikuma North constituency, as well as Okaikwe Central constituency. All of those are in contention. Tema Central is also part of those, and so we're expecting that a coalition would happen. I just got off the phone as well with the Deputy General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Mustafa Gbande, who's been telling me that they've taken a final decision not to take part in the coalition process for the day. And so that's the information he's been telling me. We'll be looking out to see whether that information has reached out to the party supporters, which would mean that we do not expect them to be at the premises if what he tells me is anything to go by, contrary to a flyer we've seen earlier marshalling the supporters. And so as far as that information is concerned, what it will mean is that we may be seeing supporters of the New Patriotic Party, but not the NDC, if what he tells me is the position of the National Democratic Congress. And so, all right,
James, thank you very much. Let me come to the studio and talk to my guest. So this is a fluid situation. Mary, what do you say?
Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers as well as the other panelists. This is worrying. It's worrying because we have seen a very peaceful election. The process was very tense before the election, but Ghanaians decided that we had enough and we wanted to see something else, and it was done so peacefully. So it's surprising that these issues are coming up, but that has we have discussed or been spoken to. We shouldn't be too surprised that some of these issues have come up. They've come up because we remember after the court process during the NDC, when the NDC took it, they indicated they wouldn't go to court again. We have also seen the police service, which has done some things in the past which didn't inure to the benefit of citizens. People lost their lives in Techim and Serve. And so citizens at this point thought that if we are having elections, we must be prepared. And I must say that the NDC succeeded in mobilizing their supporters very well. to engage in some of these processes. Even though some of us who did observations thought it wasn't that important because the process was so good. I moved from Amasaman to Teshi, and everything indicated this election was going to be a peaceful one. So for us,
it's usually at the point of collation.
That is unfortunate.
And they will tell you that, but for some of the steps they took, the ballot would not have been protected.
That's true. But then we also missed it because then where the security personnel should have been more equipped to have taken some of these issues at the police station during collation before it then came to this. We know there have been other re-collations that have also done this to us, and it's marring the beauty of what we have observed for these 2024 elections. We believe that going forward, if, I don't know, the NDC has a super majority, but then that doesn't mean if people have won and they have truly won, they shouldn't be given opportunity. The question I ask myself is,
Dr. Omane Boama says the EC is attempting, with the aid of the MPP, with the aid of the EC, is attempting to dilute their supermajority, and they will protect
They have a cause to also want to protect what they believe they have won. And I believe if others also have complaints, they also have a cause to say, okay, let's go at it. But then the EC, my worry is the EC has processes. Why is it not engaging those processes? We have IPAC. Is it that they've called and they have not responded to them?
It's the two parties who are disagreeing.
So the EC should call attention, because now we are having issues and people believe the EC is trying to get some party to benefit from this process. And it's not, I believe perhaps they would not want that to be said of them. And so they should engage in the other processes to ensure that we have some resolution to this, because it's becoming worrying. We are going into Christmas where people are called out to come on the street. Some of us may not be as safe as we would want to be. So let's call the EC's attention. And I must say again that people are not too trusting, and the surveys have said as much, that people do not trust our institutions to do the right thing. And so definitely we shouldn't be surprised that they are out there.
You can see on social media already what is happening to this particular judge, who is a priest.
Exactly.
What is happening to this particular judge. Unfortunate. So I'll take a quick break and I'll return. Reverend Fred Digbe is also on. Dr. John Osai Kwapong is also on. And Oliver Bakavomawo is right here. Can't wait to hear what he has to say. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. If you have just joined us, in the period of the elections and the aftermath of the elections and going into the inauguration of a new parliament and president, Newsfile has been giving you an extra hour from 8 a.m. So I'm sure many of you would have joined us just now. So if you are just joining us, we have been listening. We have been at the EC's regional head office, former, and we have gotten to know what is happening there. The place is ready for the collation, re-collation as ordered by the court to go on. There are barricades upon barricade, layers and layers upon layers of barricades there. We have our man, Maxwell Agbagba, outside and James Aveji inside. They have all given us a peek into the situation, except that they inform us that the two parties had invitations to their supporters to be at the collation center. That has not happened. And from the way it looks, that will be difficult for any of them to do. In fact, it's the NDC also, James Aveji Lenz is not participating or has asked its members not to show up there. And that may be for a very obvious reason. After the High Court gave the decision asking for those 6 constituencies to be recollated, and then as in Sawama Dwejiri, the NDC has been to the Supreme Court, filed the process there, asking for a certiorari to quash the decision of the High Court dismissing the application that they used to seeking an injunction to stop the EC from continuing with the collation process. They have also filed a stay of execution, and as they informed us yesterday, they have served it on the IGP, and so the expectation was that today's activity, even if it were coming on, will not have police persons there, because that would be in breach of due process of law. My guest, Mary Awalana Ada, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa should have been here earlier. He joins us later. He says that he would like to join us at 9 o'clock. It's 9, so we expect him. Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe is here. Oliver Bakavomo is here. Dr. John Osai Kwapong is here. And Frank Davis also is on with us. And he began with us telling us the chilling story of how they were held hostage in a collation center, and it took Otokono and others to calm down tensions. Otherwise, he is even, surprised that he's alive. Now, the place is being set up, so stay with us. Oliver, what will be your commentary generally about the situation as it is beginning to develop? We will deal with the specifics of the law shortly.
Yeah. I think generally one of the things that we've glossed over, I think, is that we ought to be grateful that we are seeing, to some extent, a demilitarization of our democracy and the process. That, for me, we cannot gloss over. If the military were involved in the way in which they were in past elections, I think we would have lost a lot of lives. So I hear, my senior Frank talk about how scary the events were. But one of the things that he mentioned that reassures me is that cooler heads prevailed because civilians were involved, and that there were some party leadership as well were involved in the process, and we didn't see some of the things that happened. Now, my biggest challenge is that the way in which we talk about public participation in our elections, it's almost as if we consider it as threatening rather than legitimizing. And I believe that public presence in our elections legitimizes the elections. Now, it is important that we count the election results in public, in light. We should not collate in darkness. Now, when you go to CI 127, it recognizes the right of the public to be present where we are counting. We had over nearly 41,000 police stations during the elections. Across all these police stations, for the vast majority of them, the ballots were counted in the presence of people. In fact, the proximity of most people to where the counting was done was very, very close. Police presence there could not have stopped individuals from interfering in the process if they wanted to. But that did not happen. Now, why is this happening around collation? Tells you that the problem is not that people are present. The problem is that the ways in which we are setting up the collation process does not engender the same level of openness and trust that it should engender. So if the thinking then is that, okay, collations are going to be able to attract people, police stations do. We need to set up the space in a way that is inviting to the people, because their presence and their view of it legitimizes the process. Now, even in terms of the conversation we're having now, we're seeing so many police officers deployed to the place. And if we are anticipating that people are going to be there, the idea should not be that the only way in which we can go about this securitizing the process is to overwhelm people with police presence. We can't do that if the majority of people show that. Why not set up giant screens for people to watch what is happening in the collation room? Why not televise the process? So the public will be invited in to demystify what is happening in the collation process. That, for me, is those techniques that have not been deployed effectively to ensure that people can have a clear view of what is happening, to be able to trust that this is going according to how they should go to. And that's what we haven't seen as much of. Now, in the process that has happened, in some of the conversations that have happened in the past regarding the authority of the EC to collate or re-collate as the conversation is going. And here I am a bit, well, first of all, let me say that I was in court yesterday, and I was sat in, well, not sat in the gallery, standing in the gallery because we had no place to sit. And I am unable to accept any suggestion that the view of the High Court judge was wrong.
You are unable to
I'm unable to accept that the view was wrong.
That the judge was wrong?
Yes. And I'll say why. The process of compiling elections and declaring that is an administrative duty. And in that process, an administrative body is allow the room and grace to make mistakes and correct mistakes. We cannot have, and our democracy does not benefit from the idea that once a pronouncement is made, there and there on the spot, you are bound by whatever has been said then, and you cannot correct it. I don't agree with that view. Perhaps the difficulty we're having is not that the law, that's what the law says, but that the EC has taken that posturing in the past. And if the EC has failed to be consistent on that issue, this is what has created the kind of conversation we have had. If in the past it said that if you have a challenge with what we have declared, let's recollate, then it's not a problem. In fact, the law allows us to recount. When a count is challenged, you're allowed to recount again. You can even demand a second recount until the presiding officer refuses, thinks that no, it's unreasonable. And even then, when we go to collation center, the law says that the returning officer shall recount. So there's almost a 3-step recounting process, and I don't see why recollation cannot be done as many times.
I think it's supposed to be a 2-step.
It's a 2-step.
You at the polling station, you have one opportunity.
You have two opportunities. Actually. Okay. So you have 2 opportunities under the law. But then if the officer there thinks that is unreasonable,
that's right,
it goes to collation, and then
the returning officer will ensure the recount at the collation center.
At the collation center.
Okay.
So that's how it is. And I think that even in terms of the collation process, if the EC has made a declaration, which in its own view, administratively, it says that we got a number of things wrong, let's do that. I am always more concerned about what is the future integrity of our elections. That if the view is taken that anything said binds, it means that all you have to do is that get an individual, as scrupulous as however the person may be, and then declare anything. And we say that, okay, now go to court. I don't think that's fair. Now, the process is more the trust rather than, because if what is being done at recollation is a counting process, to be honest, and the count is not correct by whatever accurate measure, then the ballots are there, let's recount. So the process is not, the question is not about the recounting, it's whether or not there's a trust in the boxes which are there. So let's recenter them as to where the proper questioning should be.
Because there are claims of foreign material, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Sheets and so on popping up at some of the places.
And that has been my concern, that I am not hearing enough about what the opposition now has talked about. Several instances where they have stopped swap of ballot boxes or people who have printed extra. I am not seeing conversation about if there was an organized attempt to disrupt or rig our elections. We need to have that conversation rather than sweep it out of the carpet.
Okay.
I think last week on Newsfile, there was this conversation which was being had about electoral offenses are offenses too. So if there's an organized attempt to rig the election, then let's go into that.
Right.
And if we don't get at that, then you're going to have the kind of problems I think we're seeing.
I'm sure later Frank Davis will come in on this, but this is the question to you, that the EC chairperson is the returning officer for presidential election.
Yeah.
So somehow she has limited influence on what the returning officer for the parliamentary elections can do.
Yeah.
And by the law, in sections, regulations 43, thereabouts, in the CI 127, is the returning officer's job to ensure that the collation is done and the one who has won is declared. The arguments that once the collation is done and declaration is over, you cannot have a recollation and a new declaration. You are saying it doesn't matter, it should matter that if, like the EC says, the collation process or the purported declaration was procured by intimidation, the duress, acts of some crime, then the EC should have the power to recollate and redeclare.
Yeah.
That's your point?
Yes, that's my view. I mean, I think that the EC as a whole has an administrative oversight over returning officers. The returning officer's job is only to return the results to us. The entire processes and integrity of the elections belongs to the EC to manage. Now, if the EC has that view, or says we make even an arithmetic mistake, they're entitled to make that correction, I believe.
I'm sure people will not begrudge them for an arithmetic mistake.
Yes. Now, the questions as to the allegations that they are made, actually very serious allegations. And I do think that in terms of the people we should be hearing from at this stage should be the relevant returning officers directly.
Right.
And perhaps that is important. And I say this on 2 counts. There's, of course, the legal issue as to who is the proper authority, who's the returning officer for these elections. But also in terms of the credibility of the EC chair herself, which is that there's so much dispute around her that it benefits our democracy to give the voices to those who are directly on the ground than taking center.
We don't know exactly what the accuracy of this situation is, but we are told that in one of the constituencies is it Damango somewhere, in the northern region, there was the declaration was done by an officer other than the returning officer. And the EC's Bosman Asari told me on Newsfile last week that they authorized him to do it in place of the returning officer. And the NDC says, you accept that result. It wasn't declared by the returning officer, but you dispute the results. You say you don't accept the results for Tema Central or one other place, which was not declared by the returning officer, but allegedly declared by a returning officer for another constituency, who is also the EC's officer. I'm going to, forgive me, Reverend Fred Degbe and Dr. John Osakwapong, because there's a legal issue coming up and I think they should address it quickly. So what becomes the effect of sections 19, 20 of the Representation of the People law? It says that the election of a candidate shall be declared void on an election petition if the High Court is satisfied that these things have happened. These are the things the NDC is saying. The EC says have happened at these declarations. And if they have happened, the only place for them to be resolved is the High Court and never the EC. So it says if the court is satisfied that there has been general bribery, general treating, general intimidation. Note that, it's important. Intimidation, because that's what the EC is saying. Intimidation or other misconduct or circumstances, whether similar to those specified in this law or not, have so extensively prevailed that they may have reasonably supposed to have affected the results of the election. Listen to this one too. That there has been non-compliance with any provision of this law or of regulations made under this law, and that it appears that the election was not conducted in accordance with the principles laid down by the law, and that such non-compliance affected the results of the election. The EC says these constituencies, they need to re-collate. The declarations and collations were made in breach and were not compliant with CI 127. This provision says if there is non-compliance with CI 127 or any other law, this is the court that is supposed to pronounce. And finally, that I'll just add one more. There are a couple of them. That a corrupt or illegal practice was committed in connection with the election by the candidate or with his knowledge or consent. So what will you say?
Well, the first one is that, 3 points. The first one is that in respect of the EC's lack of consistency, I've said that's been a problem. I believe that by this...
Because she pointed them to this law
in
2020.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that even in terms of them and go now, as we're talking about, that the EC ought to accept that there needs to be a re-declaration in that space as well, or re-collation or whatever it is, to be consistent across board as it's applying, which is what we're not seeing happen. Respect to the High Court's jurisdiction, I think that the High Court's jurisdiction is only invoked on the final voice or say of the Electoral Commission, meaning that what it is eminently gazetted should be the basis of jurisdiction, I believe. But even in...
Because a petition can be filed only within 21 days after the gazette.
Yes. Now, even in law, the first point we need to understand is that it is the institution which has the responsibility to ensure compliance with law. That if it feels that compliance of law has not been done, nothing precludes it from going back and ensuring that compliance. That is why you have situations where you go to court and then they tell you that the matter has become moot. Because the institution has done the right thing.
Right.
So this is why I believe that the EC is consistently entitled to ensure that all the actions comply with law and prevent it from happening.
Or that sometimes they don't tell you that the matter is smooth. They tell you that you should have exhausted the internal process before you come to the court. All right.
So that's why I believe that the institution retains that legal space to ensure that all its actions are compliant with law.
All right.
And if it feels or determines that it hasn't happened, nothing stops us or stops that institution from correcting that mistake.
Right. A couple of issues coming, and once again, my plea to Reverend Digbe and also Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. Let me hear Frank Davis briefly on this, and then on whether or not, in the face of what we are being told, and we're actually seeing the service process on the police, this process ought to be going on as it is going on now. Mr. Frank Davis, what do you also say? Clearly, the MPP's position is that re-collation and re-declaration, so to speak, is not against the law once it was done in non-compliance or in breach of CI 127, correct? Please unmute your mic.
Sorry.
Good, we can hear you now. You muted again.
Unmute.
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Infidelity to the law. I agree largely with the position espoused by my learned friend, Oliver. You see, we most often than not, as lawyers, we try to paint very different pictures of the position of the law to the citizenry and to our political actors just because we want to embolden them and score very cheap political points. Samson, there can be no doubt that even though the Electoral Commissioner is the returning officer for the presidential election, qua elections, it does not take away the prime administrative function of the Electoral Commission to see that all other matters concerned with the electoral process, i.e. the parliamentary election results, are done in conformity and in accordance with law. Now, how can it be the case, Samson? The materials that were sent to us preparatory to this program, I have read that in Obuasi East, an axe was put to the head of the returning officer, and he was cajoled and pulled. His hand was held up for him to raise the hand of the parliamentary candidate of the NDC as having won the election. Samson, I mean, if you are the Electoral Commissioner, would you uphold such a declaration just because it's been declared? But you see, the dividing point is what Oliver said. And I believe my friends, my learned friends in the NDC, the likes of Eduji, I mean, come on. He is aware that you can never petition a parliamentary election results without the results having been gazetted. It is prime. So this business of them going around saying that the EC has turned themselves into lawmakers and it is only the court determines the law when a petition is filed. And when is a petition filed? A petition is not filed just because the results have been declared. You have to wait for the results to be gazetted. My friends.
So as expressed, as also expressed by John Mahama, you agree that this position is the position of the law. What then will be your comment on what was done to the NDC in 2020 when they raised a similar request for this re-collation to be done for Techiman South, and that was declined?
Samson, I would have wished, with great respect to you and His Excellency the President-elect, John Dramani, man, I would have wished that you wouldn't have brought him into the discussion. I read what he said, and I think that he should, with great respect to our President-elect, with very great respect to him, I think he should let his lawyers deal with the matter, and not get.
He only said he expects consistency.
I heard exactly what he said. Can I respond? Can I respond without due respect? What happened in Techiman South is significantly different from what is happening. It's significantly different from what is happening now. In Techiman South, the elections were declared, the results were declared. I was lawyer together with Gary Nimakun for Ajay Mensah Kosa when the NDC filed the petition in the Winchi High Court. The elections were declared. The only problem which engendered some public outcry and debate and discussions was what happened after the declaration. That because supporters had massed up and the soldiers in conjunction with the police were trying to maintain and restore peace, order, there was a shooting, and in the process, some innocent Ghanaians, may they rest in peace, lost their lives. That was a conundrum. So far as I know the facts.
Yeah, but in this case also, and thank you, because I was seeking to elicit that explanation and how different that will be with the current situation. Because in the current situation, the NDC is also saying some of the places you are asking for recollation, they have already been collated and declared. Declaration has happened, except that you are challenging the manner in which the declaration was done. In 2020, they were also challenging the manner in which the declaration was done.
Samson, in 2020, the process was so truncated. I'll take time to explain so that Ghanaians will all know what is happening. In 2020, the process was so truncated. In what we are having now, the discussions at play, all the incidents which have been recounted points to the clear fact that there was a clear truncation of the process.
Okay.
So if there's a truncation of the process, how can the elections or the results be validly declared? It cannot, because look.
But you have said a while ago that a declaration was made deficient of the total number of votes, votes for a particular polling station, correct?
Yes. In Okakwe Central,
right. I
was there. They have 161 plus 101 plus 31. They have 42 or 132 polling centers. Yeah? 101 polling centers was forced on the returning officer to use to declare the results. Now, Samson, what happens to the 31 polling stations? In Ablekuma North, all right, 162 polling stations were declared, leaving out 46 polling stations. How can you have a valid parliamentary results through this? I mean, come on, you cannot.
What do you know? Tell me this. What do you know? Is the presidential election results gazetted?
Is the presidential election results? Of course, after the returning officer, Jean Mensah has made a declaration. It is gazetted. Okay.
And the collations for all presidential election results have been over?
At the last count, I think when Jean declared the results, I think we had 7 or 9 constituencies pending. That is what I recall.
So the point of my question is...
She declared for 267, yes.
Okay, the point of my question is, and please remember that I'm raising them so you educate the public. The point of my question then is, and these are questions members of the public are asking, if you can declare and gazette the presidential election results without the full complement of the results, why can you not accept a parliamentary election result that has been declared without a full complement?
I don't think the EC has gazetted the presidential results yet. I don't think so. What she said, if I heard correctly, was that in view of the numbers which have come and the outstanding constituencies, it is more than obvious that President-elect John Dramani Mahama had convincingly and authoritatively won the presidential elections. So John Dramani Mahama was declared. That is not akin to gazetting. They will only gazette when all the constituencies have been put together.
Nonetheless, that was a declaration all of us accepted.
The declaration all of us accepted because that is in tandem with what the law says.
Okay.
All right, with the presidential elections.
Okay.
If the remaining constituencies, of course, from my learning from the election petition, if the remaining constituencies will not materially affect the outcome of the elections, you declare.
Excellent.
And that was exactly what you mentioned. But
Okay.
let me just make this point before you leave me. Now, with the Insawam Eduejiri constituency, I know and I've seen the process that Eduji Tamaklo has himself filed in court, that there should be a rerun of the election in Insawam Eduejiri. Now, if what we have been made to understand from the NDC is that their candidate, the lady, lawfully won the elections, why should there be a rerun?
All right.
You see, let's prevent this inherent inconsistencies.
I need to bring my other guest in, but the small question I need you to answer in a minute, which I said the two of you must address before. Did I even forget that Reverend Fedigbe is a lawyer? Come on. I was saying let the lawyers address it before they come in.
He's an absentee lawyer.
All right. So, if it is established that the police have indeed been served with the process, as Eduji told us yesterday, can the process be going on at the EC's place as is happening now?
Samson, yes or no? I don't, like I said to you from the get-go, I don't know the full extent of the contents of the application and the reliefs which have been sought. So I cannot at this stage be seen to be speaking for the police. I think they have a legal directorate, and the legal directorate by now should be advising them. Okay. But yes, if the process of stay, I'm a trained lawyer, if a stay is filed, of course a stay is filed to prevent an act from being done. But I don't know the terms of the application which has been filed. So, Samson, without this, I cannot speak.
But the terms does not change the principle that you have just said, right?
Well, the principle is the principle, but you can have stay for varied reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe an order has been drawn. There are two different consequential things which have to be done. You intend to stay one and leave out the other. So I cannot, if I'm fixed with notice of the process, something I can conveniently.
All right, I'll share them with you as we speak, and then maybe later you can give us a little bite if you want to say something different. Well. Otherwise, we want to move on from this subject. Yes, Oliver, I'm asking that question to you too, that if the situation is what it is, as we are told by the NDC's lawyers, that a process, certiorari, seeking to quash the decision of the courts, which dismisses the injunction and said EC can go ahead with the 6 constituencies Re-collation. And then there's a stay of execution of those orders that have been filed. And it's being served, at least on the IGP. What do you expect? Should this happen this morning?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't, to be honest, I don't understand the rush. That we can take our time and breathe. You know, nothing is going to be lost between now and Monday. Surely.
You do it quick before you get legal tussles around you. The EC wants to wash his hands over these elections.
You can't do that with an election that affects the future of this republic. You know, I think that my sense is that on the law, I think that we are, and perhaps because there's a lot of agitation here, and because, again, the Supreme Court is going to be in scrutiny here, I do not believe that the NDC is going to get its way in the Supreme Court legally. Because the Supreme Court has been clear and consistent that the way in which you correct errors is through appeal process. You come for certiorari if the judge was out of jurisdiction. Now it says that the question is whether or not the judge had jurisdiction to make a mistake. So it's not whether or not the judge made a mistake in his decision. And if the judge has jurisdiction to make a mistake and he made a mistake, go and appeal. So we know that you're not going to get your way there. But if a stay has been filed, then the law is that you cannot proceed with conduct that would defeat the purpose of the application that has been made, irrespective of what the outcome may be or become. Now, if it has been served on the police, by their presence at what is purportedly...
You raise an important issue about whether it is appeal they would have to have resorted to or this. Among what they raise is that the High Court committed a non-jurisdictional error of law by failing to exercise its powers under Order 55 Rule 5.2 of CI 47 to direct the second and sixth interested parties to serve the mandamus application on the applicants who have interest in the subject matter of the dispute. So they are saying that you went to court, people who are affected by what you went to court to do were not served with the process, and the judge went ahead to pronounce on it.
So in terms of how questions about jurisdiction, the Supreme Court has consistently been clear that, or the authoritarian pattern, that persons who are entitled to be present in the matter, when they are not present in the matter, it goes to jurisdiction, and the court will lack jurisdiction there. Now, the bigger question as to here, which I have noticed in terms of how the Supreme Court proceeds, is whether or not it is going to be able to do this without consequential orders, and it's something as important as this. Because what does it create? It means when you quash a decision, it means that we revert to the status quo ante. There's no direction as to the way forward and how we are going to be able to do and go forward. I am apprehensive that the court is going to take that approach. Okay. But then again, that's my personal view.
You're getting deeply legal.
You are getting too legal. But on the question as to whether or not the police should even be present there, I do not think they ought to be there. If they are being invited by the EC to be present, they should say that law prevents them too. In the same way that the EC has on other instances refused to supervise, political party elections and say law prevents us.
Dr. Kwabena Dufo. All right, thank you very much. Reverend Fred Digbe, well, I know that your approach will first be to look at what it is that brings down the tensions and that brings calm heads so that the peace is not jeopardized. What do you make of what is going on? What should be the way out? Is the EC rushing and creating trouble?
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm glad to join the legal luminaries. Even to say I'm an absentee or whatever title they give. So I'm coming from the point of view of an election observer and of a citizen. And the question is this: the die is cast. What really is the rush about? The majority of the votes have been cast. The decision has been made. Somebody has been declared a winner. The other one has conceded. So why don't we take time to do the collation? I know it will be gazetted, but look at what is being prescribed for today. That there will be collation, the police have been invited, and there are all kinds of things that are running in the social media. 5,000 people will be there. I don't know whether I see 5,000, what the number. To what end? What end? Can we think through this process? As some have suggested, when push comes to shove, the IPAC is a place where we settle all of these things. Can we agree on the rules of this game? So the court says, go and do it today. So we are going. We've asked for police protection, soldiers protection, level 4. So they've gone. Meanwhile, someone else is in the Supreme Court. Well, unlike the previous speaker, I don't know what the Supreme Court would decide. If they decide to the contrary, or if whatever their decision is, somebody decides not to accept it or to go for full panel, then we go back and forth. My counsel will be, let's take time, let's think through this. Let the parties dialogue among themselves. The die is cast. How do we handle the rest of what is done? You see, it's as if I may use an analogy, if you kill a snake or a snake is hit and is dying, it still wriggles, and sometimes it can do a lot of harm. This society is particularly polarized, and anything we do that is not clear will attract another part also objecting to it. So my counsel is go to IPAC, dialogue, agree on the rules, and don't go and do what clearly some can read. It's not what the law prescribes. Let's be a law-abiding country, and if there are doubts, let's know that we can settle it and do what is needful to bring peace, progress, and prosperity.
Dr. John Osakwapong, what should be our way out? It's suggested that the EC is rushing this, and the earlier processes to the EC's pronouncements even when the matters had gone to court already, and the EC organizing press conferences and insisting on its point and getting the parties agitated, and even got President Mahama step in to say something. Let's listen to President Mahama and what he had to say.
Sometimes bureaucracy has a way of slowing things down, and I know some of you get frustrated and all that. I can assure you that I'm going to have a very open door so that we can help you remove any obstacles that are in the way of the good relations and economic cooperation that exists between our countries. There are a few outstanding issues arising from the election. As you are aware, 9 constituencies are in dispute, and we think that the Electoral Commission should act in a principled manner. You cannot change the rules when it suits you and apply different rules when different circumstances exist. There was a particular case in 2020, and the Electoral Commission came out clearly that if a declaration had been made, it was not the duty of the Electoral Commission to adjudicate it. The courts were the right place to go. And so if a declaration has been made, it doesn't matter under what circumstance. They're saying that somewhere under duress. In the case of Techiman South, it was under duress. There were soldiers in the collation room. There was chaos in the collation room when the declaration was made. And the same arguments were passed that, there should be a re-collation. And the Electoral Commission said, no, there can't be any re-collation once a declaration has been made. In the same circumstances, declarations have been made. If people have a grievance, they must go to the courts and redress those grievances there. We don't think that the goalpost should be shifted depending on who is at the other end of the stick. There's one particular case in which there was no declaration. We can understand that. And so the Electoral Commission has to make a determination what happens. Is there going to be a rerun? How are they going to be able to collate those results? And so we think that there must be fairness and justice in everything that we do. And so that's a concern we have, that those issues will be resolved as quickly as possible so that we know what the final outcome of the election is.
All right, let's quickly go back to where the collation is supposed to happen. And James Aveji is standing by with Director of Electoral Services, Benjamin Banobio. In the absence of the NDC, are they going ahead?
Well, Samson, we'll be finding out that shortly from Mr. Benjamin Banobio, who is Director of Electoral Services for the EC. But just a quick look at the coalition room. The electoral officials are setting up. What you see at my left here is the desk that will be doing the coalition for Techiman South constituency, where the NPP's parliamentary candidate, who is also the Minister for Local Government, his fate will be determined on that desk in a few hours from now. Mr. Ejemen Sakosa's coalition will be done there. If you come here, you have Nsawam Edwejiri constituency. Coalition will be happening on the desk here. You go to my right, and the Ahafwano Southwest constituencies coalition is what will be happening here. You see the EC officials there sorting out the polling station pink sheets ahead of the start of the coalition. That's what you see over there. You come to the far right here, you see the Ahafwano North constituency EC officials also beginning sorting of the papers there ahead of the coalition. And so that's what the room looks like so far. 4 of the constituency are set up here. The indication I get is that they would be going ahead to do all of the 9 constituencies that are in question. Mr. Banobio, the work, doing some paperwork there, would try and see if he could speak to us to give us some indication on what to expect in the course of the day. But all is set here at the EC's coalition room here at the EC regional office, where the coalitions expected to happen. His deputy is also there on the phone, looking a bit busy. Mr. Banobio, would want to try so hard to speak to you briefly on Newsfile, just to know what to expect in the course of the day. What should we expect today, Mr. Banobio?
I would have been grateful if you could have allowed me to first address the media. Because what I will say here is the same thing that I will say during the media engagement. So kindly give me some few minutes. We'll meet you just now.
Meaning we should expect a press conference from the EC.
That's right. We'll meet the media.
But are we doing the 9 constituencies in the course of the day?
Yes, please. So yeah, that's right.
There is this issue about injunction filed by the NDC. Will we get to hear about all of this?
Let me finish with you, then we'll talk about those things. Thank you.
Samson, so Mr. Banobio, they're confirming that all of the 9 constituencies will be done, but
Mr. Veji, there at the EC Collation Center where things are going on. We'll continue to bring you up to speed on that, and thank you very much. As I announced earlier, we began at 8 o'clock. I know most of our viewers, you were not aware, you would not have joined us from 8 o'clock. And between now and until the inauguration is over, I'm not happy saying that because I need my Christmas. We are going to continue your election headquarters and a special edition of Newsfile, which starts at 8, so that we get an extra time to begin to be able to canvass the issues for you. But we know the majority of you would have joined us at 9 a.m. Next week, remember, join us at 8. And this is your most authoritative news analysis platform. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, I was coming to you when we went to the EC.
Yes, good morning once again to you, Samson. Good morning to everyone else. So for me, there are 3 quick things that came to mind as I looked at this whole issue of the 9 outstanding constituencies. That if the original total 12, right? So I was looking at the different constituencies yesterday, 3 not declared, 6 that were declared at the constituency collation level where the EC says it cannot uphold, and then the 3 that they were able to recollate and declare a winner at Tesano. My first issue was that, under such circumstances, what can the EC do, and what is the proper forum to rectify some of these anomalies that the EC detailed in its press conference? And this is where I agree with Mr. Oliver that administratively there should be room for the EC as the institution that provides overall administrative oversight of our elections to be able to resolve some of these issues. That was my view, that look, if some of these declarations fell short of the proper processes, then can we invoke the same administrative processes to reconcile that and let the EC deal with that? If that is under contention, then the other proper forum, then I started saying to myself, was then maybe you go to the courts and seek proper, and seek guidance and instruction as to what to do. But my preference, and this is where I believe that the EC could do what it is doing as a matter of proper administration of election. See, this also all boils down for me to, and I've said this over and over again, the issue of trust. If you look at the conduct of our political parties in this electoral process, and this need to protect the ballot, to protect the integrity of an election, comes down to the lack of trust. I'm still not sure what keeps fueling this cycle of trust and mistrust that we see from election to election. But for me, is what drives these things. And because the trust levels are that low, political parties feel this burden to engage in what I call extrajudicial activities to ensure that they are not cheated. So if it means calling on their political party supporters, to be extra vigilant, to amass at these collation centers, polling stations. And yes, that public or that transparent nature of the counting and collation helps, build confidence in the electoral system. But that core issue of trust is what forces our parties to carry this burden of, if I don't participate in extremely keen oversight, I may be cheated. IPAC for me is a good platform to try and reconcile some of these things, but still, it just seems that day in and day out, that mistrust is not going anywhere. And I honestly don't know how you can get these, the parties to begin to rebuild some of that lost trust in the EC. I mean, and yes, I don't absolve the EC of some of the errors it has made and some of the things that it has also done, whether its actions or inactions contributing to this. You're talking of an institution that is enjoying only 11% of a lot of trust as per the most recent Afrobarometer, and that is what is fueling some of these things. So at the end of the day, though, wherever we end up agreeing is the proper forum for the resolution of this, I just hope that we get to that in a reasonable amount of time, because the more this is dragged, the more I feel like it just increases the angst that some citizens are feeling and political parties are feeling as well.
Before the election itself, I had referenced the former Soviet leader Joseph Stalin's statement, very famous statement, which Chief Justice Georgina Wood used as part of her foreword in Aku Banasse's book, The Pink Sheet. And I was trying to use that to get my guests to demystify people's minds about the fact that the suspicion that the EC can cheat in elections because of the systems we have, that we understand is almost foolproof. If you put Akufo-Addo there as the Electoral Commissioner, if the votes are against Bawumia, he can't do anything about it, so to speak. Joseph Stalin said that those who cast the vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything. Do you think this is the thing that is informing part of the mistrust in this process?
Yes, but I recall in 2016, I was on one of these internet-based radio programs where the host repeatedly had been saying that the EC had been handpicked to rig the election for a particular political party. And I ended up questioning him as to why he's so convinced, and week after week he keeps pushing that narrative. Because in my opinion, we've built enough transparent processes into our election process if you compare 1992 to the most recent time, right? To the point where now political parties and their agents copies of the pin sheets, which is the record of the poll, and they can do even their own tallying and collation as they wait for the EC to finish the final tally and declare. So I personally don't believe this continued conspiracy that the EC as an institution can change the outcome of an election.
Then why
those who continue to make this argument, and maybe they know something that I don't know.
The NDC says
where I sit and what I've observed. I still need somebody to tell me exactly the mechanism by which
the NDC insists that it is their vigilance that led to the turnout that you saw in the Ashanti region, because the votes are always padded. Now, my substantive question is, if you, CDD, don't believe that, regardless who is put in the EC, nothing can happen untoward as far as elections are concerned, why did the CDD, together with Kodeo, Reverend Fred Digbe is on the line, protest and reject the appointment of Apiahene and one other by President Akufo-Addo? You insisted that his appointment should be revoked or that he should resign.
But you see, from what I understand, right, that when you're talking about an institution like the EC, where independence is key, to appoint openly partisan people to such an institution, for me, undermines that confidence that citizens have in the institution in terms of its independence, right? So again, for me, back to my point, it is more the independence and the fair treatment of all parties involved that is at key.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we'll pause on this matter here, but quickly, what do you want to say briefly about so far what we have heard? Because we are taking a break shortly.
I believe the EC still has an opportunity. There is no rush at all whatsoever. The elections are done. Now we need to ensure that people's trust is built, considering the fact that people have come out like that against them. And it's also justified by the various surveys Dr. Kwapon has indicated. It shows that the EC needs to do more to ensure that people begin to believe in them again. So they should, if they are not pausing this, but going forward, we need to see that there is more action taken to ensure citizens trust them. And if I may talk about the issues around the appointments, the optics are very important. We talk about perceptions. And so people may not necessarily think that they would be doing something, but so far as the person is politically aligned, then the perception out there is that this
openly
person
politically aligned.
Openly politically aligned, engaged for everybody to see that this is a politician. Then it means that they could do anything if it comes to issues around litigations and some of these decisions that are being taken. So it is key that in the appointments we make to our institutions, we pick people who are neutral, if not politically aligned. I believe those ones are very dangerous to the future of this country. And so that's why we continuously said that it is important to have people who have served this country, who have the interest and not political interest. But Samson, to close on that, we, the CFI, Kodeo, and others would want to say that these elections were conducted very well. We have just 9 of the constituencies left. Let the EC try as much as possible to use the opportunities and platforms available to it to resolve these issues, and not the legalities will go on. We know in some instances it went on for more than 4 years. We don't want that to happen until the end of the tenure before it was resolved. We don't want that to happen. Let the EC use the IPAC structure to work, and we know resolution, some calm heads would come out of that. And as Oliver said, when Lawyer Davis was talking, he talked about how Dr. Tukono was the one who initiated the processes of getting him not to be lynched, as he has indicated. So we know people in this country can be very calm and also have cool heads. So let's see them do that.
Okay, thank you. You want to say anything briefly?
No.
Okay. It's okay for us that you are not openly political, so we will not support you. But if you are quietly political, it's okay to put you in the place.
No, it's
we had this conversation, I remember distinctly, when Sejabin was appointed. And I said I didn't care whether he was or wasn't. I think for me it's about the integrity of the office. And whether we have come to associate persons who declare political affiliation as having the integrity to say yes or no. That we are still missing, and for that we create substitutes and keep quiet about it. Let people don't know. Because we have taken it for granted that partisanship implies lack of integrity.
Reverend Fred Digbe, do you feel somehow vindicated in this your call, which you made, insisting that people like Apiahene should be removed because it doesn't help the trust issues? As we have heard from even Frank Davis and the rest of them, this is a question of trust Otherwise, results have already been declared at the polling station. It is just pieces of paper we are holding to the collation center for a summation to be done. Why should that be a problem?
Thank you, Samson. You see, we live in a country where I think, apart from the cedi that we spend, part of the currency we spend in this country is rumors and conspiracy theories and all of that. So what is it that could have informed 11% integrity, faith in the EC? It may be some of these things. Those who know can say confidently that even if you put whoever there, they cannot do any cheating. What is it that explains the fact that somebody going to the election without the EC declaring, say, have the figures I can see from my own internal resources that I have lost, and he concedes. Now, this shows you that there is an objective part of all of these things that's clear to everybody. But then the followers, the uninitiated, or those, as I said the last time, those who are pretending, like they said, you cannot wake somebody up who is pretending to be asleep. So if they've been told, go up there and make sure that nobody cheats you, that is what they are trying to do, party loyalists. And again, remember, so when that call was made, CDD Kodo were not the only ones. Others also heard it and protested. So you and I sitting down here can say, it really doesn't matter, but is that what the bulk of the population think? Those who are massing up there, do they think that there's a fair process, they've won, and that, are they also putting in perspective that above all said and done, we are talking only about 9 collation centers and not for the 40,000 where there's no issue at all. So let's work in context and govern our lives within the context of those people who are listening to us, who are being governed to the best of our ability. And let's listen when the protests are there to see what we can do about it. Otherwise, you come to the end of the road and they will not let you go further.
So Rev, in a minute, yes, you will advise that regardless of what, say, Afrobarometer talks about, the trust deficit in important institutions like the EC, which has gone very low, dipped, the judiciary took a nosedive and so on, it is wrong for people to be attacking the judges when they make their decisions. Because this judge, for example, Reverend Ajman, who has done this decision, I'm sure many are shocked. When we advertised that Oliver was coming on this show, they were just hoping and looking forward that Oliver will come and rubber stamp all of these claims. But here is Oliver saying the judge's decision was spot on. It's in accordance with law. If the NDC had gotten a favorable decision, we will not see them post the judge photographed together with Gary Nimakumafo on the day he was being sworn in and seem to insinuate that he's MPP. That's why he did what he did.
Yes, we live in a highly polarized context, but there are some people who also can be very objective. Oliver is a highly educated lawyer. He knows his jurisprudence, and he knows that what he's saying today may come to haunt him. So he's saying what he knows to be the law, and I guess you stand by it. It's not everybody who plays that type of game. Some are here today, some are there tomorrow, playing some type of stomach politics. So that's why I keep saying that, knowing the context in which we are working, it is important that context must be taken into account as much as possible. And the education must go on. And the political parties must take the lead in educating their people, not inciting them, not misinterpreting. But one day you will be ruling, you will come to office, and you still depend on these institutions, Electoral Commission or the courts, to uphold the law. Since we've chosen rule of law to be our guiding principle in this country.
All right, we'll be right back to ask the question whether oral operation, recover all loot, is a game changer in the corruption fight. And guess what? You know why Mariada is here. They are at the forefront of the anti-corruption campaign from the Ghana Integrity Initiative, the local chapter of Transparency International. Listen to Jane Mensah, and we take a break. We'll be right back.
Staff have been threatened, and the established collation processes, as guided by law, have been disrupted. and winners have been declared without due processes governing collation being followed. In a number of instances, our staff have been threatened with death and forced to declare outcomes without adhering to the processes governing collation. In Tema Central, the DO again was threatened, and he was forced to declare results using 146 polling stations instead of 148. The commission would not uphold that declaration. In Domi Kwabenya, there's some contention with 3 polling station results, and the commission is carrying out its own investigation with the 3 polling station results. We therefore use this occasion to humbly call on the President of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as well as our President-elect, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to intervene in this matter so as to ensure that the Commission is provided with the necessary security and protection to carry out its functions.
In some of them, let me give you first the 9 constituencies involved. We have Nsawam Aduajiri, we have Ahafo-Ano Southwest, we have Ahafo-Ano North, we have Obuasi East, we have Domi Kwabenya, we have Okaikwe Central, we have Abrikuma North, we have Tema Central, and then we have Techiman South. These 9 constituencies, their results could not be completed due to certain challenges that we encountered during collation. The whole process on the 7th of December went on well. It was very successful, very peaceful, until during the collation, when the leadership of some political party called their members to go to our collation centers and besiege such places. The party supporters got there, besieged such centers, our collation centers, and made it impossible for our returning officers and district officers to go through the process completely. Some were threatened with death for them to declare other candidates as the elected ones. Some were beaten mercilessly, and some of our properties were also destroyed. These collations, those that were forced to declare other candidates, were not done legally according to the provisions of the law. And as a commission, we cannot sit there for the wrong to be exhibited. So we are here today to ensure that the writing is done, to ensure that the collation process that were not completed, we continue from where they left off. And then, after the collation has been completed, the actual or the right candidate that will emerge a winner will be declared to the whole country. Let me explain further that this is not the first time that something has gone wrong in our electoral processes, and the commission has taken steps to ensure that the writing is done. It happened in Fantiakwa constituency, Begro, in 1996, where a returning officer deviously added 10,000 votes to a candidate and declared that candidate as elected. When commission realized that something fishy went on, we recollated that results and declared for the winner, the actual winner, the legal winner. We did that in 1996. Again, in 2004, we did the same thing. We recollated the results when we realized that something was fishy, and the right person was then declared as a winner. In this case, similar things have happened. Our officers who were threatened to declare results, those results were not declared according to the provisions of the law. In some instances, not all the polling station results were added to the collation. Some Okaikwe Central had 31 outstanding polling stations that were not added to the results that were declared. Ablekuma North has 61 polling station results that were not added to that. Obuasi they were forced to declare. They have even finished the whole process, but they were forced to cancel the one who legally won it, and then wrote the name of the one who did not win it. You get to Techiman South, the same thing. They could not even finish the collation, yet they threatened the returning officer to declare someone as a winner. These instances are all not lawful, and so as a commission cannot sit down to allow people to have their way. And in this situation, if all of us as Ghanaians do not make a decisive action on that, in future, we will not be able to even declare whoever wins, because someone who might be mightier than you at any level can force you to then declare results for someone who has not been elected by the people. So what we are going to do here is that we want to ensure that the right candidates are declared as the elected. And as we promise you before the election, that we will ensure that the votes that will be declared, the results that will be declared, will be a true reflection of the desire of the people who voted. And that is why we are here today, to ensure that all the 9 constituencies that I have mentioned earlier on go through the process. They will continue from where they ended. And then ensure that the right thing is done, and then make sure that the right candidates are then declared for the various constituencies. And as I said, this is not the first time that the Commission has taken such steps. We did same Latin in 1996 at Fantiakwa constituency, the GRO. We did the same thing in 2004, Puru constituency. So it is not the first time that we are doing this. And as a commission, we are committed to serve our country. We are committed to ensure that we deliver our mandate in a very free and fair manner. And that is what we are doing today. People are talking about Techiman 2020. Please, what happened in 2020, Techiman South, is totally different from what we are experiencing today. In Techiman South in 2020, the process was completed, and the mob went there to disrupt the whole center. But they had gone through the process legally. But in the prevailing situation, the process were not followed legally. They were not completed legally. And so the Commission has a right to ensure that the right thing is done. And as media personnel, we want you to support us, to support Ghanaians, to ensure that the right thing is done. Please expose fraudulent deals, and let us all come together as Ghanaians and protect our democracy. We thank you for coming, and we are grateful for your presence.
Mr. Bill, it has filed a case at the Supreme Court preventing the EC from undertaking this exercise. Why are you still going ahead to do this?
Please, we will not be answering questions, but I must tell you that we do not have any knowledge of such a petition.
You have not been served?
No, we have not been served. As at now, we are not being served. We have invited all the parties to bring their agents here. And you see, the regulations said that if an agency is not there, the exercise should continue. But we have sent invitation to all of them. Thank you very much.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, what we do is to put Ghana first. Mary Awolana Ada and the Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa just joined us. Thank you very much for making time to join us. Great.
Always a pleasure, Samson.
Thank you. Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe is on Zoom. Oliver Bakavomo is right here in the studio. Dr. John Osai Kwapong and Frank Davis are also on Zoom. And funny, somebody says, Oliver disagrees with you, Samson. And I said, so what? That's what it's supposed to be. We can't all agree. If I were a judge and he were a judge, he will rule differently on this matter, because you know my view already. I don't take what the EC is doing as correction, because I take it that the law seals it at the collation and declaration, after which the EC has no say, it must go to High Court. He would have ruled differently. would that have made him MPP? That's what it would have made you. It would have made me NDC. Oh, serious, this country. So on that note, please, stop attacking Reverend Justice Reverend Father Joseph Ajiman, who made the decision, okay? Because the NDC has moved further to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is there. That's why the system is structured the way it is. If you don't get it here, you go up and see whether you make it. And judges don't take decisions. It's not, most of the time, it has nothing to do with the way you think about whether it's politically influenced, okay? Thank you very much. Senor Kojo says that any EC officer who says he or she declared results under duress is a human being who must be kept far away from EC operations now and forevermore. Oh, why? But even the police have told the EC that they cannot provide security. Collation, Selassie Kofi says, collation is not for political parties and their agents. It's for all Ghanaians. So the police or the EC can't stop citizens from participating in the collation process. Okay, Krobia GSM says this current EC has shown its incompetence. We voted for change, and change is a must, no matter what. Well, you've been heard. As for the change, it's been loud. It's a super majority, and I've been asking Kujet a while ago that even if all of these things, if you give them to the MPP, it doesn't look like you are so affected. Last one, 40, says that, is there an electoral law called Re-collation? Once an appointed EC official has declared results, the next is to go to court. How do people vote in constituencies, but you want to bring everything to count in Accra? Interesting. Maybe just a minute or two of your comment on this before we go to oral. And you know he chairs the oral team, Operation Recover All Loot, and they are getting such support in overwhelming. But some also have questions, and we'll ask him those questions. How do they solve them? So there were problems. Declarations under duress and intimidation happening. So it has to be redone and done well. Declaration with not complete results.
So Samson, this being my first news file after the historic elections of December 7th, please pardon me to begin by thanking the Ghanaian people. The Ghanaian people have demonstrated that they will punish impunity, they will punish arrogance, they will punish corruption, they will punish state capture. And I keep saying that it is a lesson not just for the MPP, but for those of us coming into power, that if we do not eschew the things that has given the MPP this humiliating defeat, the worst defeat ever, a margin of over 1.6 million votes for the presidential, a two-thirds majority in parliament, never happened. It's a clear repudiation of all of what the Ghanaian people abhor. And we make a pledge that we are committed to the message that the Ghanaian people have sent. And that is why you can tell that right from the declaration, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the president-elect, is keeping to his promise, is being very, loyal to the electorate, and he does not want to betray, the overwhelming mandate that the Ghanaian people have given him. So we thank you very much for this extraordinary confidence that you have reposed in us, but it is also a huge burden, and we are conscious of that, and we will not disappoint you. So we thank all the people of this country. This was really, there is no region that we didn't perform beyond expectation. Even the Ashanti region, we've moved from 4 to 10 seats. We've won constituencies that we've never won in history. And of course, my beloved constituency, North Tongue, we set another record, 93.12%. I thank the chiefs and people of North Tongue for the continuous support in such...
If we had an electoral college process like in the US, this would have been a complete decimation of the MPP.
Complete. It's as though we've become a one-party state.
Okay, so quickly...
What they hated...
Quickly, just a minute. Let's hear you a minute on this.
In 2024. So let me state that we in the NDC take the view that what is going on is totally illegal. CI 127 is very clear. Our position is that there is no animal known as re-collation under the law. We are clear in our minds that those declarations having been made ought to stand. If you have any concerns or objections, please go to court. That has always been the position of the EC. You recall in 2020, Techiman South, we had serious concerns. We said that our pink sheets do not show the results declared. It does not align or confirm what the EC has put out. And we held press conferences. We demanded, some, proper collation done without soldiers and the shootings that occurred in Techiman South. In Techiman South, people were actually killed, and then there was arm twisting and the declaration was made. The Electoral Commission told us that we have to go to court. They cannot go back on their word. They have done their declaration. So what has changed? What has changed this time that now you can...
They said they have done re-collations before. Hold on quickly. Let's go to the Electoral Commission. Let's go to the Electoral Commission quickly.
Patrick Boachi Adam is NPP. Samra Boaji, NDC, and then J. Usu, a free independent candidate. And these are their results. Patrick Boaji got 18,005. Patrick Boachi Adam got 18,558. Samuel Abuaji got 18,539. And Eje Usu Efriye 424. On that note, Patrick Boachi Adam got the highest figures or highest marks. So I have the honor to declare Patrick Boachi Adam of MPP as the parliamentary member of parliament elect for Obuasi East. If you consider the results, I have the honor to declare Patrick Boachi Adam of NPP as the member of parliament elect for Obuasi East. Thank you so much.
Please, how many polling stations were outstanding?
We conclude all the polling stations, not a single one left out.
But you could not do the declaration on the day of the court.
Right, so there you have it. The re-collation is going on, and Obuasi East it's changed, right?
Kangaroo. I mean, just let's look at what's going on. Look, we have no doubt that all of these things will be overturned. We have confidence in our appeal. Look, there's a clear effort to erode the two-thirds majority. The Ghanaian people have spoken, and they spoke emphatically. It was so decisive. All of these shenanigans, these last-minute, underhand dealings to thwart the will of the people, to subvert the will of the people, would not work.
Okay.
And let me assure the rank and file of our party, and indeed all Ghanaians, that we will protect their votes. Going into this election, the clarion call all over was that, please, we will vote for you, but make sure you protect our vote. And that's why vigilance was so high. I commend Omane Buama-led East Electoral and IT Directorate for the great job they did. And we continue. That team has not been disbanded. They are still on the ball. We are committed with our legal team to make sure that all of these things are overturned. I mean, see, they themselves don't, you can tell from their body language that they are embarrassed with what they do.
It's the fastest collation and declaration you can see.
Yeah.
In the absence of the besieging people. All right, so let's... You said?
More of a coronation.
Anyway, so now let's go to oral, Operation Recover All Loot. And as you know, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa is a man that is leading it. Yao Domelevo, former Auditor General. That's big people who have insight into the corruption underworld. Kofi Boache, Martin Pebu, the man who Anyway, I won't say it. Raymond Archer, also an investigative journalist. I'm sure you are familiar with him. So let's have Mr. Ablakwa take us through a process so that we all are on one page, understand what it is that their mandate is, and then I'll bring my guest in. Reverend Fred Digbe will speak first after because he has to take leave of us. Remember, the show is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strongest group and closer partner, MTN, everywhere you go. HSC University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robertson Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial star 165 hash on MTN to join My Way today. DB Industries, roofing, Papa Fie. Flamingo Paints, simply superior. Syntex Stands is strong and it's tough. Activa International Insurance. Our clients are passion. Let's hear you.
Well, thank you very much, Samson. So ORAL, as we all know, stands for Operation Recover All Loot. And this is a major plank in President Mahame's anti-corruption agenda. You recall that during the campaign across the length and breadth of this country, he assured the Ghanaian people that the litany of scandals, and everybody knows that this has been the most scandal-riddled government ever in the history of our country. So he announced a raft of measures that he would take to deal with the canker of corruption. Oral is only one of it. He has talked about constitutional reforms to make sure that Parliament is empowered so that this fusion, this hybrid is addressed once and for all. He has also talked about passing the code of conduct, bill so that public officials can adhere to strict code of conduct. And then he says that within the first 120 days, he's going to ban politicians or his appointees from having the opportunity to purchase state assets, as has been one of the characteristics of the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia era. So
you started to run a private member's bill on that.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, because of the gridlock in Parliament, we couldn't have it passed. So Oral will investigate corruption cases. It will recover the misappropriated state resources, and then the offenders will be prosecuted. That is when it is fully operational. But at this point in transition, what the president-elect has done is to have a preparatory team. And the press statement signed by the Honorable Felix Kwachiofosu is very clear. I've heard many people say, are they not usurping existing institutions' mandate? What is their legal, mandate and all of that? We want to make it clear.
Legitimate questions.
Legitimate questions. And we are glad that those questions are coming up. So it's just a preparatory framework. The president-elect does not want Ghanaians to think that all of this oral campaign was just campaign talk, political talk, and that having won, he's forgotten about it. He wants to show the Ghanaian people that he is hitting the ground running and that he's committed to his anti-corruption drive. So it's just a preparatory transitional process where we are just serving as an evidence-gathering team. So we are just a conveyor belt. We will hand over to an Attorney General when he has been appointed and approved by Parliament. So we want to make that very clear. We are not going to investigate. We are not going to prosecute. We don't have that legal mandate. So it's just to make... And you see, what this does is that apart from showing the Ghanaian people that the president is committed to this anti-corruption drive, it also helps to address the impunity. Remember that when there are these transitions, some people become emboldened, they want to target certain individuals, certain assets, they want to take it back. But when you have this formalized process, and the president-elect explained that even he was receiving a lot of calls, a lot of messages. Once you have this formalized process, you go there, send your evidence there, and we have announced our interactive platforms. We've told the general public, you can reach us on 0800 900 111. That is the hotline, 0800 900 111. We also have a website, oralgh.org, or you can send an email. And the way it's been done, your identity will be protected. You don't have to worry about coming under threat because your cover has been blown. And the email is public@oralgh.org. And we announced this only yesterday.
Those who don't want to hide the identity. I saw that the Media Foundation for West Africa got you a dossier.
Yes, a whole dossier. And when you go through it, we were shocked at what we saw. And now the basis for oral, the Corruption Perception Index, and I'm glad that The grandmother of that is here herself, Auntie Mary. We have stagnated. Akufo-Addo's best performance is President Mohammed's worst performance. And GII and civil society, anti-corruption crusaders have been worried about our performance. Then you look at the Auditor General's reports year after year. Last year, the Auditor General discovered that this country lost over 8.8 billion Ghana cedis. And the Auditor General made a profound statement. He said that a lot of the funds were recoverable. And that is why Dom Levo was doing surcharging, disallowances, and all of that. But that has stopped more or less since Dom Levo was handed out. And so the Auditor General appointed by this president is saying that a lot of the 8.8 billion could be recovered. And that is what oral is about, that we can recover those...
Occupy Ghana audited 5 years of the Auditor General's report and found that money that was lost or stolen or misused was more than up to about 3 times what we have gone to the IMF to borrow.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised at all. Indeed, conservative estimates put it at about $3 billion every year, the losses to corruption. Okay. So I'll quickly go through some of the matters that have engaged the nation's attention and agitated minds. The 25 billion banking sector cleanup. I mean, this is one area. Look at the sums involved, 25 billion. I mean, we in Parliament are not impressed with the accounting, with the breakdown, with the transparency about it, because we have been told by other experts that it should not have cost us more than 12.7 billion. So where did the money go, particularly when we still have people up to now who have not received their full monies that they had stored in the bank? So that's one area that, the Ghanaian people are expecting that we work on. The luxurious presidential private jet travels, when we have a presidential jet, 20,000 euros an hour, that is a matter. As we speak now, we do not know how these jets were procured, who were the middlemen and all of that. And we've lost over 100 million cedis on this Skybath, travels. We are concerned about that. The $58 million National Cathedral hole. I mean, as for the National Cathedral matter, you think about it, you don't know, what all of this madness is about. Over 339 million Ghana cedis. And as Bishop Dakeward Mills said in his resignation letter, he has built magnificent churches for far less. And he could not understand why, at the time he was resigning, $30 million had been spent, and all he saw was a pit. And that's why, after that, you've seen Reverend Isudanaba, Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams, Pastor Otabil, they have all resigned. We now have a Shraj report which says that whole project is illegal. They didn't follow the procurement laws, and that retrievals have to be made. Carrie Summers is a chap in America who is keeping at $6 million. He was giving that money to go raise funds, which is against the industry practice. He should have just been given a commission after raising the funds. Then the inflationary pricing, the extortionist pricing with David Ajayi. Suddenly, under this government, David Ajayi became the sole architect, architect extraordinaire. He had all the projects from Marine Drive, Trade Fair, National Cathedral, the Parliament, the new chamber project, everything, Du Bois Center, everything. And the way he is procured under emergency circumstances, sometimes without recourse to the Procurement Act. So these are people who we will be interested in. Then the National Cathedral Secretariat continues to receive salaries. So far, three of their top secretarial officials have received about 2.2 million Ghana cedis with no work being done. So these are areas that we are concerned about. Then there's a $108 million ambulance scandal. You remember the presidential daughter's business partners. Ken Ofori-Attah's last action before he left the ministry was to authorize the release of $10 million. We have the letter attached in this presentation. We went to the OSP. Unfortunately, the OSP has not concluded work on this. We are concerned that the $34.9 million for just ambulances, which is more than the cost of the ambulance, could be paid if we do not, delve into these matters and retrieve, the funds. Remember that there's an Auditor General report that also indicts the companies involved in this, that due process was not followed. So we're interested in that. Then there's a $2.8 million Sputnik V vaccine, which you recall that some shonky sheikhs appeared from Dubai. The minister says he was not thinking straight because of the COVID pressures when he appeared before a parliamentary committee. But we haven't gotten our money back. We need that $2.8 million. It has to come back. That can do a lot. Then there's the 21.3 billion COVID expenditure. Remember the special audit. The Auditor General says that there's a lot of money as part of this 21.3 billion that we can recover if we go for it. Monies that ended up being diverted, being used for political campaigns and all of that in 2020. We are all conversant with the Auditor General's report, the Ministry of Information's role and all of that. Then the $130 million Frontiers COVID-19 airport testing saga. Benedict Peters and his gang, you recall that the health minister told Parliament that at the time the company was asked to go test, it didn't even have license from HEFRA. And they didn't follow the procurement laws, and yet they've made over $130 million. We did an RTI after much frustration, a great, ordeal it was. We secured the contract and discovered that it was such a one-sided contract. The $150 passengers were paying. Ghana was getting only $10 out of the $150. So a very unconscionable deal, and it's a matter that we believe that we can pursue further. Then there's the Bank of Ghana corporate office. We intercepted documents that it started at $81.8 million. That is what the board approved, both the BOG board and the PPA board. That's the approval they have. The letter is here dated 28 January 2020. Within 6 months, the project had escalated to $121 million. And then a few months thereafter, it became $222.7 million. Our procurement laws are very clear. With this wild variation, they should have re-tendered. They should have started afresh. They didn't do that. The Central Tender Review Committee raised queries against this project, and yet with impunity, they have continued. The president has gone to commission what is an uncompleted project, but we have lost over $222.7 million when the only approval they had was for $81.8 million. So those out there saying, oh, is this oral agenda not witch hunting? Can't you live it? No, we cannot live it. There are huge sums involved, and we have to retrieve those monies for national reconstruction. Then Pualugu Dam, Parliament is still aghast that $11.9 million was spent, and this is all you see when you go to the site. We've been asking questions. They haven't been able to tell us exactly what they did with the $11.9 million. Then there's the $250 million single source inflated road contracts awarded to Resource Access Limited, belonging to Vice President Baumia's brother. When you read and this is from an Auditor General's report. So all of these things we are talking about are not just concoctions or fabrications. There's an Auditor General report on cocoa roads, which reveals that 85% of cocoa roads awarded were single source. And what the Auditor General did was to compare the 85% single source awarded contracts with the 15% that were competitively done. And the Auditor General discovered that the single source projects were inflated 3 times. So we didn't have value for money, and it is really sad that the people who in opposition said that they were going to make sure the era of single sourcing ends, their family members came in and took total control. This is another matter that I'm passionate about. We spent 85 million Ghana cedis renovating, well, it was supposed to be used to renovate the Esipon, Tamale, and Accra sports stadia. We discovered that the work was not done, and we ended the ban. CAF banned us, and we have now gone into
the contract was awarded
infamy.
to Akufo-Addo's cousin?
Awarded to Akufo-Addo's cousin, Kelvin Oforiatta, again single-sourced, and they don't get the job done. I mean, apart from the naked conflict of interest, they don't even do the job, and then it attracts a ban. Then there's the unconscionable $48 million 13th Africa Games operational expenses, which at the time, the exchange rate, it worked out to 602 million Ghana cedis. This was an expenditure in excess of appropriation. Parliament had approved only 100 million Ghana cedis, and yet over 600 million was spent. I remember that this is different from the $80 million spent on feeding, the over $3 million on accreditation cards and all of that. So that whole, All Africa Games, over $240 million, we need to really be concerned about it. There's a lot of retrievals that can happen there. Then there's the almighty $3 $3 billion SML scam, which Manasseh did a great job on. The KPMG report has vindicated Manasseh, but there have been no retrievals. Despite all of those
contracts have been cancelled.
KPMG reports and all.
The president ordered the cancellation.
Yeah, the contract.
Two of the contracts.
Yes, the contract has been cancelled, but a lot of payments, had gone on, which should not have happened. But should the people walk away with their monies? We take the view that shouldn't happen. Then there is the illegal printing that took place at the Bank of Ghana. Over 80 billion Ghana cedis, Ghanaians will recall. And the law is very clear. You cannot print in excess of 5% of the previous year's revenue. And this was a clear violation. The governor has explained that, hard times, he had to do that to save the economy. We don't know how this economy was saved. But follow the law, follow due process. So over 80 billion Ghana cedis, and nobody knows what that money was used for. Then there's a 95 million Ghana cedi West Blue matter as well. They managed to get a consent judgment, which they've saddled this country with.
Is this viewer going ahead of you? He's asking, how about PDS? That's bigger.
Yes, that's going to come up. It's going ahead of me. Then there's a $12 million Ejapa payoff. You remember, we all thought we had stopped it, civil society, the media, we all thought. Then we discovered that apparently they had gone to spend $12 million in London. We think that money ought to be retrieved. Then PDS, the viewer is spot on. So $190 million lost. Then there's also the 1 billion cedis that PDS says they collected, which they have not released. We need to be interested in that. They have to give us that money. Already ECG is collapsing. Their technical and commercial losses is in excess of 32%.
This led to the Millennium Compact taking away the project to support ECG's operation, which now President Mahama is seeking to see if we can get it back. Is that possible?
Yes, we are getting good. He met the U.S. ambassador, and she says that she'll help us to restore that.
Quickly finish up.
Then we have the $24 million tax waiver granted to the president's brother-in-law, Dr. Kwame Nyantechi Owusu, for a Pullman Hotel, which never happened. The hotel project never happened. Then there's a $2 million failed SkyTrain project. Some people showed up from offshore. They say they have a Mauritius registered company, and then just generously gave them $2 million to come build SkyTrain for us, and we can't find them. The Auditor General says that GIF is saying they can't locate the people, but our $2 million is gone. We need that money back. Then there's the Access Citizens $38.2 million visa processing scandal at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They didn't follow the due process, and this is another matter that we have to retrieve. Then there's the Cecilia Dapa matter, which everybody is conversant with, over $1 million, over 300,000 euros found in her home. That matter has not been resolved, and it is in her own interest that we get to the bottom of this. Then there is the DRIP, $178.7 million project. We did an RTI request. The DACF responded and confirmed what we suspected, that it was single source. The project is inflated by over $102 million, and we are committed to making sure that whole arrangement is reworked. Fortunately, not all the money has been paid, just about 20%, 15 to 20%, and we think that the huge inflations that have gone on, the new government should not be saddled with. Then there's a Buankra Elan Port scandal, over $33.3 million. What Parliament approved was totally different from what they went to implement, just a hand-picked company. Then you remember the Moshosho rice scandal, unwholesome rice that had gone beyond its best before date. It was criminally rebacked in a government facility, the National Food Buffer Stock Company in Kumasi, clear collaboration with state officials. But what is troubling about this is that despite the criminality, the company was fined and they paid only 50%. We will pursue them not only on the criminal aspect, but they must pay the rest of the fine because we need money for national development. Then there's the National Service Fund, the $4.5 billion National Service scandal. The Media Foundation for West Africa and the Fourth Estate have done their presentation to us yesterday. Then there's a 2.6 billion Ghana cedis dubious and duplicative digitalization deals in the health space in our country. We asked for an audit. The NHIA assured us they will do that audit. It hasn't been done. We are going to pursue that matter. Then there's a $36 million COVID-19 Smart Workplace project. During COVID, a company received $36 million that they were going to make sure public sectors could work from home. The Auditor General discovered that they didn't do the work. And this is another Nigerian called Philip Olaya, who is controlling the communication space. He's the same guy behind the $48 million Ascent Digital scandal. And we need to get all those monies back. Then there's a $8.5 million Black Stars AFCON budget, which was not approved by Parliament. If you put just this 30 selection together, we are talking about $18.4 billion. Just the 30 scandals selected. So when people say, oh, can't you leave it to be a witch hunt? We cannot. Look at the sums involved. That's more than 6 times what we are begging the IMF for. Just these 30 scandals. You know, so we really have to be concerned as a people that where will the monies come from, particularly for a new government that has said that we are going to abolish e-levy, abolish betting tax, abolish COVID levy, abolish the emissions tax. Where will we get money for the reconstruction of our country if we do not pursue these matters? Then quickly on state capture, very quickly. State capture is also, you know, a new canker which has consumed this country. And Dr. Atta Kennedy was right in his post-mortem article that they lost the election because of state capture and corruption. Remember the Bulgaria embassy demolition. I mean, you are conversant with the Vienna Convention. You do not, violate the inviolability of diplomatic.
I need you to go over this very quickly.
So we know about that. We've been saddled with a 5.3 million Ghana cedi compensation, according to the Seoul Enquirer. That has not been paid yet. Then you know about the Briar Champions Need Hotel saga, then the Labadi beachfront. But yesterday there was good news. Thanks to the way Ghanaians have voted, the management of Labadi Beach Hotel felt emboldened to go to court, and they have secured an injunction against the Blay brothers and to stay off their beachfront. They now say that they can reclaim their beachfront, which was taken from them at the time Freddie Blay was chairman of the MPP. So very good news. Then there's the Akufo-Addo daughters in Sonam land grab. I did an official search with the Lands Commission. That restaurant is on the state land, and we need to really know what's going on. His niece's Lot fashion company also on the state land. Then there's a Heaven Builders land grab, the airport lands, which under very dubious circumstances were given to this company. We've been chasing this company. Their address doesn't lead us anywhere. We're concerned about that. Then the demolition that the Lomote Adote family suffered, broad daylight demolition to politically exposed persons, the Dream Citrix Company Limited. We need to go after them. Then there is the Baumia's Aid land grab, prisons lands at Roman Ridge being given to Professor Pierre-Edu. There's the Parks and Gardens lands in Accra, in Wa, which we have to reclaim. Then there's all of these state capture reports across the country. What Suhini reported in Parliament happening in Tamale, Cape Coast, Ho, Kumasi, Takrady. So state capture has become a huge issue. The Ghana International School land grab, we still haven't identified those who try to take over their land at dawn. We are concerned about that. The Agric Extension land grab, which also has the National Intelligence Bureau boss and Kennedy Osenyaku and others. That is around the Gifford Road, opposite Elwak. They have just taken over that agric mechanization. They violated the LUPSA law. They haven't come to Parliament to rezone, and they are just sharing it amongst themselves, paying a paltry 160,000 cedis for prime land, which is going for over $1 million. Then you know about the looting at the AU village in cantonments, and we have the list. All of those who benefited, they paid less than 180,000 cedis from KJ to Ibrahim Muhammad Awal, Dr. N.S. Edu Addison, the governor of Central Bank, his 2 deputies, Joseph Boahin Edu, Dr. Janet Ampedu Fofie, Kobna Mante Jaktenyako, and Samras Fodajete, Amasari Odro, Kenoforiatas, Enterprise Insurance, the Kwesi Abuaji Etua, the SIC board chair, former Chief Justice Georgina Theodora Wood, Janet Ampedu Fofie, Kwabna Mante Jekte, and all the others. And what is, very characteristic of this whole state capture is that, there's no advertisement, there's no due process, it's not open up to the general public, and so you have now many institutions in court fighting to protect their lands, including the Judicial Service of Ghana, the Prison Service, the military, and all of that. So state capture is another huge, canker that ought to be defeated, and we need to retrieve all of these assets for the country. So because of time, I've run through this very quickly, and this is the case for oral. And look, only a few days ago, I went to Uracare to visit a constituent of mine. And then all the doctors and nurses told me that, look, we voted for you people because of oral. If you do not retrieve what has been taken away from us, forget it. We're going to come after you. And what it will mean is that you want to come and do the same thing. That is why you are not pursuing those who have engaged in this.
The expectations,
this is the case for oral.
The expectations are even more beyond oral, and Oliver Barker-Vormawor led one of that angle of what is expected of the Mahama government. Please catch your breath. We'll be right back.
A preparatory committee, and I think people are misunderstanding it. We're receiving a lot of information on things that are going wrong, or things, corruption scandals and all that. Some send me texts on my phone, some call me, others pass through other people. We want a focal point where all that evidence is directed, and so that they can assemble that evidence. And once we come into office, oral is not going to be investigating people. It's going to gather the evidence and pass on that evidence to the government institutions that are supposed to do that kind of work. And so we just want that if people have any information that they think is useful in the fight against corruption, pass it on to this team. That's what the team is about. And they're all doing that service pro bono. They're not expecting any payment. There's no expenditure or budget associated with the task that they're carrying out. And so that's the explanation for it. Yeah. And so I don't think that people should think that it's a witch hunting committee. They have no brooms to fly at night. So I can assure people that it's not meant to witch hunt, people.
Right. So you just heard what oral stands for, the purpose, and what exactly they're going to do. I'm sure that you have a lot of questions, as many have started asking already. Let me go to Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe first, because he has to take leave of us. What do you think? People are telling them that we voted for you because of oral. And as I speak to you, I'm getting messages from significant persons in this country who say if oral does not add galamsey to their task, then their task is incomplete. What do you say?
Thank you, Samson, for giving me this platform to share a few thoughts with my fellow citizens. Now, some time ago, I became the chair of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. And we had some frightening docket in front of us, and how to handle it was a mega problem. Fortunately, I was given a scholarship to be part of the International Visitor Program, spent some time in the US. So that's the background from which I'm coming to share some of these things. It's a very laudable idea. And when the member of parliament was sharing this, I was having goosebumps, because the list is formidable. The amount is staggering. And to hear you add galamsey, it is incredible. But these are some of my thoughts about what is in the pipeline. I beg that we should not run a country where the country is run only by agenda of the party called a manifesto, or what some are referred to as the tail wagging the dog. What do I mean by that? One, it's a good idea to find all who have looted this country and recover as much as we can, But I also need to add that what we do is important, but how we do it is also important. By that we mean there should be due process. If we are starting now, how much time does the government have before they take over power? In a couple of weeks. So if you set up ORA, in a couple of weeks, you are in government. What is clearly obvious to me, and perhaps to a lot of Ghanaians, may be the willingness of the government to have the political will to chase and recover monies that have been looted. Because that has been our bane. Laws we have, the institutions we have them, but lack of political will, even as a chair of the Anti-Corruption Coalition, to Auditor General to even give us the so-called blank envelopes of people who have filed their assets, declared them. He was unwilling to do that. Why? Because we were afraid of the powers there be. So having said that, one, I would say that it is important that we must do what is repeatable, what is commendable, and what seems right. Let the state institutions, for the benefit of the doubt, do their work. Let them be empowered properly to do their work.
Dr. Digbe.
The government has powers of coercion. Yes.
Dr. Digbe,
yes.
The answer to the question of the now, why not wait until you assume office? They explain for us to appreciate is that this is the time where we are hearing that people are looting places, taking away vehicles and all sorts of stuff, and they are in danger of being attacked, as we see repeated when there is a change of government from one party to the next. And it's an opportunity for those who have genuine, complaints to make, to quickly inform them, so they will assemble the evidence to help these whistleblowers, so that in due course they will transfer it to the state authorities.
I hear that. But who is it that has the coercive powers of the state? Does ORA have the coercive power of the state to arrest people? Does it have the power to stop people from flying out of this country through the borders? We don't. That's why I'm giving this caution.
Okay.
Because one of the things we learned from our IVF is that we do things so hurriedly and we create loopholes and people take legal shortcuts to get out of the loopholes, get out of the loopholes because we didn't do our work properly. That's all that I'm calling for. That it is important what we do, but how we do it is also important. And what power, what mandate? I've seen some letterhead with some of the things that they are supposed to do. What is that? Does that constitute a legal mandate for ORA to do what they are doing?
Okay, I'm sure he's noted your question down.
And the perception of those who are on the panel, the perception, we have a very divided country. And if we start like this, then we'll go back to this ping pong, this back and forth that we see at every transition. Maybe a 4-year term will show us that, yes, I'm not looking for re-election, but I can do what I need to do and do very well.
What is this perception of the members that you speak about?
Pardon me?
What is this perception about the members that you speak about?
The perception is that the 5 who are appointed have access to grind with people who they know have done a lot of things. Sami just gave us a whole host of whatever has gone wrong that he has a list of. Fair, he's doing his work as an MP. The COP, Wachi, they've listed him as having asked to grind with some people. All of these things may be true. Domelevo, a very good auditor, somewhere became a casualty of some government left and right there. These perceptions may not be right. But all I'm saying is that give a dog a bad name, and in a very polarized country like this, you will get the good job you want to do, being given a good name, being given a bad name, and hanging it. So let the IOCO, let the Auditor General, let all the processes work, empower them, give them money. And if they have this information, they should give it to them.
And you will be the first to admonish by saying, by their fruits we shall know them. So we wait to see their fruits to judge them, correct?
By all means, we can say that we'll see by their fruits. But what is the precedence we are setting? Precedent is very important. Didn't we see some of this? Some of us were students in the university. What did the PDCs do? What did they not do? After 30, 40, 50 years, what have we seen? When we were students, all those who had lands in East Legon, they were blacklisted. Some ran away from this country. Those who have 50,000 cedis in their bank account, they were blacklisted, they left this country, and what did they do with the money? How wrong was it for them to have 50,000 cedis in their bank account?
Are those the things that this particular committee reminds you of?
It reminds me of the lack of due process, things that are not sustainable. We have instituted in this country something called NACAP. NACAP 1 has just ended. An evaluation has been done. NACAP 2 is part of what should come on now, and it's part of the IMF conditionalities. Are we able to take advantage of this? And the big thing for me, the big commendable thing for me, is the clear political will and the mandate of the people. Having got that powerful
NACAP
combination.
1, NACAP 2 you refer to.
Yes.
And we still live in a Ghana where we are told that as much as $3 billion United States dollars is lost unaccounted for every year. In fact, Professor Adair, when he was at the anniversary of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, said he believes that amount may have doubled. That will be so much. That's talking about $6 billion US dollars that this country cannot account for. And IOCO has existed. The police have existed. NACAP has existed. So we are not winning the fight against corruption. Something must be done.
Something must be done. And that is the political will. That's the political will I'm talking about. If they are showing that we have a political will to do this, which is commendable, and Ghanaians have voted for you to do what they think you should do, then let the law work. Let NACAP work. Let all of these things work so that we have a precedent. We do things that people can say, oh, these are the best practices. And they don't label you as witch hunting, as this and that and that. Even if they do that, a court of that has investigated and come out with the findings will be more sustainable, acceptable somehow for this nation than going through this. We have just 2-3 more.
They are saying that they are simply a conveyor belt for whistleblowers to the established agencies. That's all they are. They are just a conveyor belt for whistleblowers to OSP, to police, to IOCO, and so on.
So what are these IOCO police who are being paid with the taxpayers' money doing?
Good question.
They must step up.
Thank you.
If we have anything to say, we must say to them that, look, new broom, sweep clean, stick up, give your mandate, or at least if you send us something as ORA, send a copy to the police, send a copy to IOCO, send the copy to all those things, so that we will work on it together. So by the time you come into office, they must begin to tell you their plan of action, that business will not be as usual. That's all I'm calling for.
Thank you very much.
Process that is sustainable, that moves this country to go to the root of the problem. A good idea, how we do it, is also important.
Thank you very much, Reverend Fred Digbe, Dr. Fred Digbe. Thank you for your insights and your questions that you have raised as well, including the caution that he has given. He's a co-chair, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO. And as you can see, he's not only a reverend, he's a lawyer, and he's also had to chair anti-corruption bodies' work. He leaves us at this point. We still have Dr. John Osai Kwapong. We have Frank Davis on the line. Let me go to John Osai Kwapong. Do you align with the issues that Dr. Fred Digbe is raising?
To a large extent, yes. One, the issue of due process definitely will be very important. As the president regularly says, not until you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, you never get a full appreciation of the importance of due process. So definitely that will be very important. It's good that the explanation has been offered that the committee is, as you describe it, essentially a conveyor belt to initially gather all manner of information and then to be passed on to the appropriate state institutions. Because yes, in our system, we do have the appropriate state institutions to deal with the matter of corruption. One of the things that, in my opinion, this also does is that I have often argued that fighting corruption is both a political, needs both a political approach as well as a legal approach. And I think sometimes what hurt the current administration beyond the different scandals that emerged was, for me, a strong attachment or insistence on a purely legalistic approach to fighting corruption, right? As I said, I agree with the president when regularly he raises the issue of due process. But in the court of public opinion, due process is not the only thing that wins you political approval in demonstrating that you're committed to the fight against corruption. And that's one of the things that I see the initial euphoria and excitement that is greeting oral. That is what it is doing, right, to demonstrate that political commitment and that political will. The last thing I would add, though, is that we do very well during government transitions or party turnovers with post-regime accountability, where there continues to be challenges is in-regime accountability. And I'm glad that, as the Honorable said, this is only one of the ways in which the incoming president and his administration is promising to fight corruption. If you look at some of the anti-corruption measures that he espoused during the campaign, there are other things that he has promised to do that would ensure that in-regime accountability. So hopefully that would go hand in hand as they fight this issue of corruption.
Okay, so earlier you would have seen some footages from the EC's offices where Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo, lawyer and MP for North Southern, was concerned, and you saw something that looked like some altercation. You saw the majority leader now, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, also there and trying to calm tempers and the rest. Roxanne stormed out of the place because he was helping with the process in Tema Central, E.B. Bright. You remember that he was at that collation center as well, the original collation center. That led to an officer other than the returning officer for that constituency declaring the results, and we are told the declaration was under duress and that there were some 2 or 3 polling station results that were outstanding, and that if those were added, E.B. Bright would have lost. Of course, you have seen that the one that was declared earlier, Obuasi West, is it? The loss was marginal. This is what appears to be playing up there. His contention is that the court order was clear that there should be re-collation. And so for the officer to show up there and say he was going to continue with the collation from where they left off, that was illegal and unlawful. The re-collation must start fresh. They didn't agree with him, so he's left there. He says he won't be part of the illegality. So it does appear that a lot of legal things or troubles may come up. Frank Davis, I suppose Frank is still with us. Oral, Operation Recover All Loots. Should we be focusing on legal mandates, whether they are established by a constitution or a law, before we can tell that the purpose is a good one?
Thank you once again, Samson. Samson, for whatever you do to gain legitimacy and legal grounding, you have a source for your authority to act or mandate. And I think as lawyers, we should be concerned about that. The idea is reassuring. I mean, we all belong to the country called Ghana. So whatever is done to, as it were, map up our economic resources and make sure that we benefit from largesse of the state is important. But don't let us jump over ourselves and do things which will bring legal questioning after. Well, I'm told is a preparatory team which has been constituted by His Excellency the President-elect. I sitting down here, I truly do not know under what authority they are acting. But be that as it may, they have been constituted and they have started work by giving out sources where they can be reached for information to be divulged. I've seen the constitution of the committee. Okujetu Ablakwa just spoke on your network, a very good friend of mine. Dom Leveau, ex or past Auditor General, I don't have much of a relationship with him. Nathan Kofi Boache, very, very good friend. Some of them actually goaded him to become a lawyer. He's now a trained lawyer. Martin Pebu. Martin, yes. Another friend of mine. Raymond Archer, in his very heady investigative journalistic work, was always running around the courts with us. I almost always saw him in the company of Tony Letha and Marita Brew, our former Attorney General. So yes, these are people who have been put together to aid in the work. I trust and I believe that they will bring whatever experience and expertise they have to bear on the work they're doing or they're going to do. But I will urge my good friend Samuel Okujetu Ablakwa. Yes, I can appreciate the zeal and the enthusiasm, the pension, the spirit with which he wants to work, but he should tone down a bit and don't let people think that he has already started this thing before. He's led the path, whether rightly or wrongly, against this Labadi Beach hotel matter. He's been with the National Cathedral. He's been everywhere. So he's been in the public space for some time. So I think he should be quite mellow in speech when he's talking about these things, so that people do not get the impression that he's out for vengeance or is a vendetta, payback time, and all that. And they should minimize the mention of names. You know, Kenneth Oforiatta, the former finance minister, has been all over the news. I mean, people have been mentioning even before the committee was constituted. I mean, the likes of Martin Pebu do not spare any moment when they go on TV programs. Kenneth Oforiatta's name is mentioned, and they have looted public funds and data bank looted and shared loot. I mean, please.
Yeah, you're right about that.
When these things happen, the perception is created that you want your pound of flesh, and for me, it doesn't. The optics are not right. You see, they have been constituted, so they should just mellow.
Right. So you will expect that. You will expect that, as you began, you said it's commendable, but it is also important. Yes. It's also important to know the as it were, the creator. It must be law that creates you. But beyond that, you are saying, as I hear you, the legal principle, constitutional principle, hallowed principle that people who are even suspected of anything criminal must be presumed innocent. Is what should lead what they do, right?
Yes. So they should tone down, now that they've been constituted, the likes of Martin Pebu. He should stop ranting on all radio stations, mentioning names, people who are going to be prosecuted, people they've stolen money. I mean, as a trained lawyer, they've stolen money, they should bring the money. Why did you see them stealing the money? I mean, come on.
Okay, that's good advice.
So you see, we should temper all these things with some sobriety and at least
that's good advice.
When we do work, people will come out to praise us for what we've done, and that people will not rather lambast us for something that we were set up to do in the supreme interest of the country. I mean, that's my caution.
Right. And let me come to the studio now. And so let's hear Oliver. Then Mary comes in because this is her forte. And then the things she will raise, Sammy will have to answer them. So law is important. As they say, you can't put something on nothing and expect it to stand. Yeah. It will collapse. Yeah. He just done small, he said this is even a sneak peek into what the country may have lost. And that's the quantum is almost 19 billion US dollars. Imagine Ghana had that money. Imagine all of this is proving. So we should look at the popular part of it that is good, the moral part of it that is good. So let's not focus too much on this law.
Let's be clear. I am completely disagreed with people who are talking about law in this conversation now. The president-elect has no executive mandate. No. He has no power authority to appoint any committee and put them on state resources. He's entitled, as an individual who's coming into office, to put together a team of people to advise him whether to prepare the way as to how he exercises that executive mandate. And there's no, how is he going to execute or pass law to be able to put the committee together? As I understand now, the president-elect is traveling out of the country. He's not doing so on state resources. He's not going with the full complements of the state as he's doing that. In fact, I have in the past even questioned whether or not transition law should allow the president-elect, before he has been inaugurated, to be able to do those travels, because it imperils the security of the state. So in the same vein, to put together a group of people to advise him, he's entitled to do so. It is said to be preparatory. I think that if this committee had been inaugurated by the NDC as a party, we won't be having this conversation. I don't see any difference in that regard. The problem,
but how could they, and to the extension of the president-elect also, you have de facto power, not de jure, not legal power. How can you institute an entity that interferes with my rights as a citizen? So you can only do things that are private, not
as I understand now, they are entitled to say to the general public, whether the party or the individual, that anybody who has information, bring it to us as we are preparing to assume office. It is information gathering, as I understand it. Information is like a research commission. Now, the problem with what has happened now is that the names of the individuals who is appointing were issued on a letterhead that said the transition team. It then created an impression as if this was part of the transition process. Now, again, we are still a young republic in terms of transition, and the law is young. And that even though he has been president before, he has not been part of transition from the other side. He was as president, the law was passed in 2016. It is not part of the transition process, and that's where the confusion came from. That if this was something that had been declared on his Facebook page, as he has done on his travel, then we would have understood that that is not part of performing any executive functions, and it is not related to the transitioning process that is going on. So my hope then would have been that, even as we are going through this transition process, folks who are versed in constitutional and administrative law would advise into some of the things that can be issued on letterhead. And when certain things can be issued on president-elect letterhead and certain things on transition team letterhead. So that's perhaps the only thought I would say here.
All right.
But talking about oral, I want to be clear. There's only one liner of Operation Recover All Loot to investigate, prosecute and recover IPR. That the NDC says in the manifesto. People think that we are here and having this conversation by accident. We are not. One of the things that we, at Face the Country, purposely did, that we waited for when the election was over and decided we were going to blow and focus attention on oral. Because we wanted to be able to drive a mandate from the street to put pressure on the new incoming government. Because this is something that we think that the Ghanaian populace want to see. And that we didn't want it to be part of the talk as usual. Now, in this conversation, we are very intent in being key stakeholders in the conversation about how we go about this and bringing ideas to the table. And at this stage, it's what we're asking all partners to lend support to the process. The problem we have is perhaps even the choice of name. Because we use operation, and I don't know why our penchant for military terminology always comes into play into some of these things. It has fed into that historical baggage of the military era, some of the emotiveness that follows the process. And that's what is creating some of these things. But I have said clearly that there are some of the creative legal innovations that we have ever seen around corruption happening under AFRC and PNDC. A lot of those things are not bad. The era itself did not allow us to be able to see their full complement and pursue it and think about it. With the way corruption operates in this country, we have to think more creatively about law.
So sorry, but you just mentioned PNDC.
Yeah.
And to think, and Mary will agree with you,
Yes.
the success they made, that in the democracy we failed to make.
Yeah.
We are now talking about the Conduct of Public Officers Bill.
Yes.
And the struggle is so that the asset that you declare will be verifiable
and published.
During the PNDC era.
Absolutely.
The law allowed the verification
And publication.
and publication. In the democratic era, we hide it, and the Auditor General cannot even see it. What a joke.
The democracy has operated in a way in which it has grounded and allowed corruption to fester.
Exactly.
And I think that's what Oral is going to face. That there's a massive amount of legal, financial, media resources are going to be deployed to tame the process, to question the credibility of individuals involved. Even culture will be involved in this process. Now, this is what I read from what we need for the corruption fight to succeed. We need a political will at the highest level, and we need a mandate from the streets. We, as Ghanaians, must be prepared to support the process and demand that it goes forward, irrespective of the challenge that it's going to evoke. And there's going to be challenge. Now, I'm a bit disagreed, again, with perhaps Jai and when Mary comes in and others, that the problem is not that institutions don't exist, but we recognize that in terms of the normal operation of institutions in this country, that they have not allowed the corruption fight to be most effective. We need an element that is driving and mobilizes, that realigns some of the corruption fighting institutions that we have seen in this country for so long. I'll give an example. When the current president was being appointed, he talked about the ANAS principle. This was an extra, outside of the institutional framework, thinking that he was talking about, that we never saw implemented. Ghanaians supported the idea massively. We are always looking for something that will drive institutional reorganization, that shows that there's some drive behind the fight. That's all, for me, this is talking about. Not that we are jettisoning or pushing aside institutions, but that there has to be an attempt and rethinking about reorganizing. And that reorganization must not only affect institutions, must also affect law. For me, critically, the only law that we have on our books that would make sense a lot to this fight is perhaps Section 179, which is the causing financial loss to the state. We've seen that used when Kufuor first came into office, Victor Selome, Kwame Prepa, and others were jailed and all of that. We have to think about that carefully and also augment it. Corruption must be thought of as organized crime. That's what it is. A lot of the corruption that we are seeing is hidden. He talked about, some of the finances that were not approved. But in terms of the bloating of contract, payments that seem legal by their nature, but in fact the purpose of which the money is being paid is in fact illegitimate, which has caused losses, those must also be interrogated, and law would get in your way. You have to think about that as well. So we are prepared as much as possible to, provide thinking from the public square as to how we want to guide the process.
On the back of this, people are questioning why are they, even at the transition level, saying big procurements should not be done, recruitments that are being done should not be done. Should they be asking those questions?
So, I've seen some people suggest that legislation should come into force to prevent these things. I think that any legislation like that will fail. Because the president has a mandate of 4 years. I agreed with that. What is missing, though, is culture and consistency. That we saw the former administration, even before Parliament, say they were going to sack people, they were doing all these things. Yes, my expectation is that if you believe in an ethic and principle, then you must maintain that conduct even in terms of your own selves. That's what we have not seen. I, for instance, hold the belief that in the last year of the presidency, he's a lame duck president, shouldn't make appointments to the Supreme Court and others. Not that he doesn't have the mandate, it's my principle and belief. That if a new administration come in and they do same, I'll stick on that viewpoint. And that's what we are not seeing in this conversation happening. But I think it will be a challenge to be able to say we are watering down your mandate in a particular point in time. That I find a challenge.
All right.
So that's perhaps my view and thinking on that.
All right. So, Mary, and look, we are an interesting country. I've had the opportunity of representing people from when it was called JIDA. And then when it turned from JIDA to, Youth Employment Agency. The government came in and then they just asked their constituency secretaries and organizers to take over particular positions because they had planned it, that when we win power, all of you secretaries and so on, you become heads of JIDA in your places or YEA in your places. Then they issue letters of asking people to go on leave. Some of them outrightly dismissing them, and some of them they are rearranging. And there were people in Accra that were thrown all the way to Hamley. They were not giving a dime as transport to go there. Some of the people, they actually made mistake. Drivers, they designated them wrongly. So I fought for those who suffered when MPP came in, and then fought for those who suffered when NDC also came in.
Yes.
And I realized they became friends. What do you think is good or bad about oral?
Great. So, Samson, thank you very much. Let me begin by saying that I think people got me wrongly from the beginning by saying that we do not have any challenge with oral. In fact, we support that process because the fight against corruption in this dispensation, particularly with the 1992 Constitution, has not inured to the benefit of the citizen. And so for us in the anti-corruption civil society space, we support oral 110%. However, we say that the way it's being rolled out is the key challenge. And if we do not take time, we will raise people's expectations. And when it comes to dealing with the legalities of the issues, then people will begin to say, oh, this government, after all, has disappointed us again. I say so because we've seen it happen over and over and over again. In 2017, we had a committee set up to do special audits of the previous government, NDC's stewardship, particularly when it comes to procurements, big procurements at the time. And we all know the result of that. A lot of issues, underhand dealings, we had illicit things happening, and it was one of the key things that led to the Auditor General, former Auditor General, who is part of this team today, being kicked out. We cannot run away from that. So we learn lessons from the past to shape our way. If we do not learn those lessons, we had the allegations of people creating vehicles to be able to benefit from that scheme at the time. And so today, if we want to we have put a very laudable process in place that we want to recover all stolen assets. Exactly the case, and it is very credible that we want to see that happen. We cannot sit there and say that we don't want to have that happen, but we know that we are a people ruled by law. We are a people who are supposed to know. For instance, if you take the Whistleblower Act, it is not every issue that would qualify as a whistleblower complaint if we deal with it the way we are going. Because we have confidentiality issues within there. You go to SHRAJ, and I heard the SHRAJ commissioner say, when they pick the information, whichever information they bring, and it is within their remit, then they will deal with it. That is instructive. Because we know that whistleblower, it must be confidential, because we have replications for...
So SHRAJ is supportive of oral?
Oh yes, yeah. we all are supportive of oral, but not of the vehicle it is being pushed through. That we must all agree, that we need to rethink. And again, I believe that maybe we will be the only ones to say that we should let our institutions work. I have heard arguments like the OSP's office is a lame duck one. The OSP's office does not have the independence to be able to prosecute the agenda of oral as it is. SHRAJ has not administratively been able to do much of that as well in the past. But Samson,
I thought rather that many are pointing to OSP, that you gotta give it to OSP. Don't go to Attorney General because they can't prosecute. OSP, you can trust them.
And the arguments are This morning I heard on TV3 that we are saying the institution should be allowed to work, but they have seen that the OSP has not been able to do much, and even in his own lamentations, he says he's not been given the independence to do so. And so for a government that is incoming, which is committing to fight corruption, it is my belief that this is the time for His Excellency President Mahama to show that independent, give it to them, that I am giving you this space. Please take it, and within 1 year, 2 years, I want to see this agenda.
I've heard Samuel Kute to stress that they will empower OSP the more and financially.
Exactly. So why do we have this? You see, I tend to, Samson, I tend to believe that when we have done things in the past which have not been beneficial to our democracy, we shouldn't be encouraging to do same. You know, you remember the Citizens Vetting Committees. Right. And the way it went on.
There are people who miss those committees.
They miss them, but we decided to go past that. We are in a constitutional dispensation. And for me, even with the committee, we have also said that we do not have any challenge with it, but the way it is being done, going into the media space and receiving complaints, then validates the thinking that we are going the militant way, and that is not what we want.
The footage you just saw somewhere, I think you saw, did we bring you a bit of the EC office? So from Obuasi East, where the NPP MP has been declared, we heard of the Tema Central. It looks like that place to Ibi Bright will give way for the NPP's candidate, but it has stalled because Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo decided to boycott the process on grounds of law, he says, because the order of the judge is not being complied with. And then, as we understand, Arnaud Dompre in Sawama Doajiri appears to have been declared. This process has been over, and he has been declared as a winner for that constituency. They have people saying this is wisdom. He's a lawyer. He says, Senior, on the matter of the legal framework for the preparatory team, I ask if Imani or Occupy Ghana or any CSO had decided by itself to gather information or evidence which they intend to hand over to the state institutions, would they need a legal framework for their composition? I think GII...
We have an ELAC. We have an advocacy and legal advice center that gives opportunity for victims and witnesses of corruption
to blow the
whistle and make their complaints. And Samson, you know how we are navigating this space because of the legal challenge. We have put in place an MOU with the state investigative institutions and anti-corruption institutions. And we set up a steering committee that meets on a quarterly basis to assess some of the complaints that have come in. And so that's why I continue to say that the Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, who has my number, could have consulted earlier, because there are ways of navigating the legal hurdles that we have.
They have announced.
And the ELAC is doing very well.
Already, people willingly are taking things to them.
But then it becomes a challenge.
Some say, like you hear him, he has this refrain that sunshine is the best disinfectant.
It is.
So that they are taking it and they are passing it on, but they are providing a certain buffer of pressure on the institutions that have failed us over this period, to make sure that once the public knows through oral that you have been giving this matter, you have to pursue it.
I'm saying that is, it is, I don't know what to say, but then I believe that whatever happens, as you talked about in the Bible, John 1:5 talks about, and the light shined and the darkness could not comprehend it. So that is one of the things we want to see. However, we say that whoever has an issue, please make a complaint to the special prosecutor. And above that, we have said that oral can only succeed if we make the legal hurdles we have currently remove them,
okay,
or we make them go away. And we are in such a good place to do so because Honorable has said that they have a super majority. So for us, number one, the restrictions in the law, which makes corruption itself a narrow offense, should be expanded.
All right.
We cannot do much without that.
Is the other part that Vomo came into this studio today, but we have benefited a lot from his expertise as he shared them. I think we will have to plead with him to make a date again, because that angle about what the legislation should begin to look like with the majority they have in Parliament, where they can do so many things.
In fact, we should.
How should it look like? Before I take a quick break, before Sami comes in to answer all your questions, the transition.
Yes.
Is the incoming administration correct to say, don't be making all the payments you are making? We are seeing that some of the payments you are making very huge. You are making them to cronies. Stop the appointments you are making. Stop the recruitments.
Samson, the government has lost power, but it is not ended its tenure. That is a fact. We cannot say they should stop working, but ethically it is wrong. It is wrong to incur debts for somebody to come and take over from you. I know I read the Indian process. I think we should begin to think about that and reflecting that into our processes. 6 months to elections, you cannot incur debts for your colleague, whoever it is. It could be the same party coming into power. You cannot go around the country commissioning and making. Those are vote buying schemes, and in our projects we have documented some of these.
Right.
And we believe going forward we should ethically, even though legally it is not wrong, but ethically there is a big challenge with this. And it's not just this government. We saw it in the previous government. We had a project where we went to the DVLA to talk to them in 2017, and the CEO had a challenge because he had been saddled with a lot of people, 370 something at the time, who were employed and given to him to take over. And he said, look at some of these letters that were given. They don't even have a schedule. Where do you expect us to fix them? These are challenges that have existed not just today. But then it is wrong when people have said we'll sack them. And they went ahead to sack many of these, not just in the DVLA scheme.
Okay.
I know people.
Thank you. I take a break here and return to Samuel Kujetua Blakwa. And okay, I understand we can continue because my audience want to listen to Sami, and if we break, they will punish us for it. In any case, this December, as I told you, between now until Christmas and even over, there's a 10 to 15% discount that you are getting from Konati Clothing. You can find them at Adenta Shopping Center, Adenta Down. You can call them 0244-676732. 0244-676732. Konati Clothing. What you wear counts. A lot of questions. How do you respond to them in the next 8 minutes?
Well, I'll do my best. And let me state that the general view, listening carefully across the table, is that the incoming president ought to be commended that he is committed to the fight against corruption, and that Ora was not just an empty campaign rhetoric, which he did not have the commitment to follow through. And in principle, I don't hear anybody opposing that commitment and the oral vehicle per se. What I hear people say is that let's be careful about legal challenges, mandates. Let's also avoid witch hunting. Don't go and pursue a certain personal vendetta and all of that. I'll take all of that as good advice, which we have to welcome. I think that the statement that announced the team was carefully thought through. It said it was just preparatory. The president-elect has been cautious in ensuring that he doesn't come across as president who undermines state institutions. He's been president before. He knows the importance of state institutions.
He says he wants to leave a legacy.
And he says he wants to leave a legacy. I mean, this is a legacy-making term. And he wants to be remembered for all the good reasons. So he has said that our mandate is very limited. He's reminded us, you are just a conveyor belt. And I am glad that listening to Madam Ada carefully, she indicates that even at GII, they have a platform where people can send their complaints. Because, you know, human beings are different, our psychologists are different. Some, you know, even approaching a police station, going to Iyoko, going to Shiraj, they are scared, you know, so that's why GII has offered that platform. It's a similar arrangement. I mean, and you see, let's ask ourselves, how is it that all of these institutions have existed all these years? And yet, look at the canker, look at the rot we saw. And you see, honestly speaking, the outgoing president did not also inspire confidence with his approach. You know, whistleblowers, people who were reporting corruption. Look at what happened to our good friend Manasseh. At a point, he had to leave this jurisdiction. You know, there are many people who were hounded out. So if you trying to report corruption, the
GIIs are part to blame because there were those also supporting him to do some of those investigative stories.
Yeah, you know, and then eventually they had to fund his escape. So a certain climate was created which was not conducive in the fight against corruption. Now you have an incoming president who is saying that I want to welcome it. I have a different approach. I have this preparatory team. Go to them, submit it. We are not going to tamper with it. We are not going to do investigations. We are not Iyoko. We are not OSP. We are not Shiraj. We are not CID. We are not the Attorney General's Department. All we are saying is that it's a conveyor belt. What this does is that it inspires confidence in the general public. It lets the public know that, look, this whole anger against corruption, the incoming government is on your side. They are committed to do something about it. Even when the president doesn't have a full mandate, has not been sworn in, he is making this a priority issue because they are watching his early day steps, you know, and it is important that the incoming president assures the public that, look, this is a vehicle that you can use. Then you look at the membership. These are people who, throughout their life, you can see that they have a certain commitment to the fight against corruption. I mean, will you question the gravitas of Mr. Domlevo or COP Kofi Boakye or Martin Pebu? You know, the work that we have all done in this space. So we understand these issues, and we will continue to appeal to the Ghanaian public and to civil society that support us. All of these concerns coming are good. We will be.
Maybe you should also look at the Whistleblowers Act and see how you can use it to support your work.
Yeah.
Because there appear to be a room where you can use the Whistleblowers Act. In fact, the Whistleblowers Act allows for whistleblowers to blow to their MPs.
That's true.
You know,
that's true. Yeah.
And you pass it on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know.
In the setting up of the committee, they forgot that women were part of the people who voted for them.
My first observation.
And women are also part of the fight against corruption. And they gave us 5 men.
And we're having a first woman vice president.
And so I'm a member of the Net Rights, and we believe that the Net Right for Women organizations in Ghana, and this group of people, we believe that has not been fair.
Right.
We know there are many credible women.
Thank you. I think our guests on Zoom should come in just a minute each.
I was just going to conclude by assuring everyone that this vehicle will work. Let us not be cynical. Let us not be skeptical.
Right.
We need everybody's support. On the gender issue, I think it has been acknowledged. And this is the party that has helped us to have our first female
vice president.
Yeah.
And moving forward, be rest assured that you see.
Thank you.
Committed to 30%.
Frank Davis, I have a minute.
No witch hunting.
I have a minute on the transition matter. Frank Davis, you clearly would say that they cannot be saying what they are saying, that there should not be recruitment. They are talking about FDA recruiting some 300 people everywhere. They are recruiting so many people. They should stop. Is there a legal basis for that? But is there not a moral basis for that? That it shouldn't be done?
You see, Samson, thank you once again. You see, Samson, for us as lawyers, morality stands distinct from legality. Now, if we are all made to understand that the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has a mandate up to the midnight of the 6th of January, before President-elect John Dramani Mahama is sworn in, what legitimately prevents the President from carrying out the duties and functions of government and from his appointees to also work? I mean, you see, I don't want to pick and choose, and I don't want us to be behaving as ostriches. I mean, we just saw His Excellency President-elect John Mahama exit office in 2017 after the 2016 elections. And before he exited office, he made some appointments. And legitimately and rightly so, there was a lot of talk about it, but he had a mandate. He appointed, I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me, without the present Shraj Commissioner.
Domilevo
was appointed. Yeah, Domilevo. They were all appointed when President-elect His Excellency John Dramani was about to exit office. And they worked to the best of their professional competencies and abilities.
I'm sorry, but this is where we have to end it. Thank you very much, my guest. Thank you also very much for your time this morning on Newsfile. And as I've been telling you, this is a continuation of the election headquarters. The election processes are not complete. There will be an inauguration on the 7th of January. Newsfile, we're giving you an extra 1 hour. We start at 8 until it is 12. Get ready for another exciting and memorable time with the family as we bring you yet another fun-packed edition of the Joy FM Family Party in the Park. Set in the Eburi Botanical Gardens, families will once again be treated to lots of bonding and fun activities such as cooking competitions, tag of war, tag of peace, sack raising competitions, musical chairs, dancing competitions, and many other. There'll be Kamido, Kwampa, and Kwabna, and of course many more and other activities will be mounted on stage live for you. The Joy FM Party in the Park is simply the place for the family this Christmas. Mark the details, 26 December 2024, 26 December 2024, Eburi Botanical Gardens, 10 a.m. sharp. Tickets are going for only 200 cedis for a family of 6. 200 for a family of 6. To purchase your ticket, use the short code *714#. *714#003#. *03*3# and select Party in the Park. Thank you very much. My guests have been Mary Awalana Ada, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Samuel Okudjeto Blakwa is MP North Tongue and Chairman of the Operation Recover All Loots, that is Oral, Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe, Co-Chair of CODEO, Oliver Baka-Vomawo, Constitutional Rights and Policy Strategy Advisor, Democracy Hub, whom I am making a deal with to return next Saturday with us. Dr. John Osai Kwapong, Fellow, CDD Ghana, and Project Director, the Democracy Project. Frank Davis, he is Chairman, Constitutional and Legal Committee of the New Patriotic Party. And very sorry to hear what you suffered, Senior Frank Davis. This should not happen. Don't hold people hostage because of elections and threatening their lives. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. Have a good afternoon.